Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the sixth monthly TWitWoW Q&A. These questions are from, mostly at least, from December of 2016. We actually got a nice chunk of questions back in November between the end of our Q&A from November and the actual literal end of November. So we have a lot of questions this month. And when I say a lot, justice. Our previous record, I believe, set not this past month, but the previous month, so it would be October, was 58. We had 58 questions. Actually, it might have been September. I think it was actually September, not October. But it was 58 questions. And we broke that record by a whopping 34%. Breaking any record by that much is just ridiculous. I mean, if a football player has like a 1,300-yard record, a 34% breaking of that record would be like another 360 some yards on top of that. It's just unbelievable how much we shattered our previous record. And for those of you that are not great at doing mental math or don't have a calculator handy, 58 times 1.34. Yeah, we have 78 questions this month.
Guys, it is absolutely insane. I plead at the outro of every video, submit your questions, submit your questions, submit your questions. And to say that it didn't fall on deaf ears would be probably the grossest understatement in TWitWoW history. You guys came thundering in with your questions, 78 total. To say this is going to be a long night, to say you should take a deep seat, not only should you take a deep seat that you're sitting in, should be considered your new residency, because we're going to distance, baby. Pillar to post, bell to bell, 78 questions on lock. I can't wait to go through all of these.
Well, you can't wait to go through all of these. I, on the other hand, am just hoping we survive all of these. So let's get started. Let's get right off the bat, get right into it. The first question that was asked when our November Q&A was over was from Rotten Butter. We got 4 questions from Rotten Butter. The first question was, who do you feel are some of the best move sellers in wrestling today?
Who are some of the best moves? So, I think Puma sells exceptionally well.
Yeah, that was the first name that came to my mind too.
I'll still give Dolph Ziggler credit. If he has any calling card anymore, I still can appreciate how he sells. I don't necessarily think he's the top dog anymore. I mean, again, go back to Prince Puma. I think he's better at it for my money. Kenny Omega, I feel like, can sell really well. I mean, he showed me a lot of that in the G1 Climax. We've got a lot of great sellers today, to wrestling's credit. I mean, what are some names you're thinking of, bro?
Well, you definitely already mentioned my number one pick, which would have been Puma/Ricochet. Ospreay is another good one. I think a really underrated seller is Sami Zayn, because he does ragdoll physics better than pretty much anyone.
Yes.
Neville is an excellent seller. And what I love about Neville is that he doesn't just sell a move. Like, we are talking about move sellers, so that's more relevant. But he doesn't just sell a move. He's one of the better long-term sellers that I've seen, where, like, if something happens where, like, somebody works a body part or he tweaks his leg or something like that, he's one of the few people that remembers to sell it for the entire match, and I really appreciate that. Rollins is another one who's a really good seller, and he's like one of those bump artists who like go out of their way to figure out ridiculous bumps to take in the middle of a match. And yeah, those are kind of the main ones. AJ Styles is an underrated seller. He's just one of the most complete, amazing wrestlers. Kenny Omega is a phenomenal seller.
Yeah.
I mean, his selling in his match with Naito got the crowd to cheer for him. So
I think Dean Ambrose is still great at the art. So that's another one.
Ambrose he's pretty good. I wouldn't put him in the top tier, but he's definitely above average. Yeah,
right.
So yeah, I'd say the top 3 that I can think of would be Ricochet, Sami Zayn, and, as you already mentioned, probably Ziggler has got to be still in that contention. So those are my guys. Oh, another one I forgot to mention, Tyler Breeze is an amazing seller too.
Yeah, I wish we could see more of that, but yeah, you're definitely right.
So those are the guys that I would want to kind of put in that conversation. Up next, who are some of your favorite wrestling commentators? Since you went first for the last question, I'll go first for this one. We'll try and remember to flip-flop as going forward, but if we overly eager and we really want to answer a question first, it's just whatever. My favorite commentators are Vampiro, Mauro Ranallo, Tom Phillips, and yeah, I'm not really a big fan of any of the heel commentators in WWE, although I do still enjoy Corey Graves from time to time. I think that I'm kind of over him being like, oh my God, I love Corey Graves so much. But I still like him. You there, John?
Yeah, bro, you actually had a drop off. I apologize. I think you had a cutout there, but I did hear you say about Corey Graves, how you enjoy him from time to time, but he's kind of fallen off for you.
Yeah.
I would definitely echo your sentiments about Vampiro. I think Tom Phillips isn't appreciated enough, so I'm glad you mentioned him too, because I quite enjoy his work. And we're talking about all time. I mean, I grew up on Jim Ross and heel Jerry Lawler. I love those guys. And even Lawler as a heel, when he got to do it for that little bit, I thought he was right back in his element. I loved him. Morrow's great. Honestly, I think as long as they just keep letting him do his thing, he could build a and really called the moves and told the story. So I really appreciate him as well. Yeah, we've got some great commentators. And even look, I'll say this too. I enjoy Cole when he's allowed to, again, really do play-by-play. That commentary he did in Tokyo, with the whole Finn Balor winning the NXT championship, I thought was quite good. I think the problem is not necessarily the people doing commentary. It's what commentary in itself has become in a mainstream sense. It's become advertising. It's become promoting. It's not really about telling stories or getting certain characters over, like Jerry Lawler commending a heel act or, something like that. It's not really about that anymore, and that's a shame because I love quality commentary. And yeah, those guys are definitely some of my favorites for sure. I completely agree with you.
Yeah. So if I had to come up with like a dream commentary team, using only current day commentators, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. I know, Bobby the Brain and Jesse Ventura and Ross and Lawler are all great and stuff, but I'm talking about just current commentators. I would want Morrow as my play-by-play guy. And then for my two, because since we're using the WWE format and we're having a three-man booth, my two color commentators would be Daniel Bryan, because I loved his chemistry with Morrow in the CWC, and Vampiro, because that would be just interesting as hell.
Oh my God, Vampiro, I think is my favorite color guy in the game right now. Because he just seems so genuine to me, and I
That's
think
what it
that's
is.
why
I
I love.
love that he doesn't come off as like this fake, overly professional, like Michael Cole. Even Mauro Ranallo kind of has it where they come off as like they're trying too hard. Vampiro has just this ability to just come off as so natural and so real, and I think that adds a lot to any product, and even especially Lucha Underground, where he's freaking amazing.
Well, I mean, think about it, Ashton, and this is just me kind of giving the biggest praise I can to Vampiro. If the commentator is supposed to be the medium between the viewing audience, at home and what's being viewed, then him expressing that happiness and that fun, like that gives me the perception like, wow, this really is a fun time. Like I feel this atmosphere. I like hearing a person have fun or get engrossed. I remember one clip and it's always stuck with me because you ever like see those clips where SmackDown like is that commercial, but of course they keep rolling and you get to see that like unaired footage, so to speak. There was one, it was like a Guerrero and Benoit segment. It might have been Los Guerreros and Angle and Benoit, I don't know. But Michael Cole just tells Taz offhandedly, like, I could watch Benoit and Guerrero wrestle all day. And I love that. Like, I wish we could hear more of that. Like, you enjoying a certain performer or what makes these performers so great, because I feel the same way. And I think that's why I love Vampiro. I think he's one of those guys that really captures the voice of what it means to love professional wrestling without being too formal or trying too hard in what you were saying to be too professional about it. Like when he speaks, I feel like he really is speaking for me. And yeah, I love how he does it. He's great.
Yeah. All right. So that was a fun question. Let's move on to question number 3 from Rotten Butter. Let's see. I think I lost track of where I was. Favorite in-ring attire. This is an easy one for me, but we're going back and forth. So John, you can go first here.
Say that question again, brother. You kind of little cut. It was Rotten Butter. What did he ask?
Favorite in-ring attire.
Oh, favorite in-ring attire. This is actually a good question. You know what? I gotta say Johnny Mundo's in ring attire because it's the ring attire of Che. You got the fur boots, you got the sequin pants and everything. He looks like a freaking rock star because he is. And so yeah, he'd be my favorite attire. If I was going more classical, I've also got to go with my other favorite, Benoit. You got those Wolverine claw marks on the pants and the whole Wolverine faces on his attire because he was rabid and he was intense and he definitely communicated that. So yeah, definitely those two guys. Oh, and honorary mention would be Seth Rollins because I love his entrance attire and then he just takes it off and it's just oh, these are fight pants. So that works too. So yeah, those are my three.
I feel like we interpreted this question very differently because you kind of chose more traditional, just guys who wear pants. But
Yeah.
my favorite in ring attire is Drago by far. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he really does have a great aesthetic, with the mask
Yeah.
and everything for sure.
Yeah, so I would say Drago for sure. This is in ring attire. Remember, I know
Right.
Cliff in chat said Okada's jacket, but that's an entrance attire, not an in ring attire.
Right.
But I think my second favorite in ring attire would be Matanza because he just looks like a freaking badass in that jumpsuit. It's amazing.
He does. He pulls it off so well. If for all of the quote unquote monster characters that would seem like they were going for that horror movie look, and instantly what comes to mind is Unmasked Kane, especially when it was on his heel run. I don't think anybody's captured it better than Matanza. He's freaking great.
Yeah. So that'll be the answer to the third question. Fourth question from Rotten Butter: do you now, or have you ever read comics, including manga and web comics? And if so, what are your favorites? So for me, this is an easy answer because I can honestly say the only comics that I have ever read comics, and other than that, I haven't. And obviously, that means those are my favorite because they're amazing. So, John, how about you?
It's funny, dude, because when I was a kid, I wanted to get into comics, but I just never really knew how. And it amazes me how expensive comics are even today. I did recently read Deadpool comics so that I could write my essay for Deadpool in Philosophy, which is coming out January 12th if you want gifts for yourself or your family, just for whatever reason. And they were good. I read the newest series they did with Deadpool, and I really liked how they interpreted the character. I think they took it some interesting routes. I read some older Deadpool comics too, like his very first run in the 90s. Didn't finish that series, and honestly, I'm kind of disappointed in myself for that because that was going well too. As far as manga, usually just DBZ and stuff, but the funny thing about that is it's usually just scanlations online. My sister used to have a Shonen Jump subscription, and I used to read Yu-Gi-Oh! And stuff from there. But yeah, that's really all the experience I have. It's really not much.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's about all we can say about that. Again, I don't really have any experience with comics. So there you go, Rotten Butter. Hope you enjoyed our answers to your 4 questions. Up next, we have 5 questions from Ace the Skylord, and this is probably a good time to address the sheer volume of questions that we got this month. We are going to have to lower the maximum number of questions that you guys can ask per person for the next month. I think we're going to have to lower that to 3 because I was doing the math, and if we would just lower it to 4, we still would have had over 60 questions this month. Whereas if we would lower it to 3, we would have ended up with, I think, 52 questions, which is much more reasonable, even though it's still freaking ridiculous. It's much more reasonable to ask us to answer 50 something questions than 60 or 70 or almost 80, which we got tonight. So I just wanted to put that out there to make sure you guys know. John is going to be reminding you during his outros of pretty much every show. But yeah, we're going to have to lower the max question amount for each person from 5 to 3. Apologies for that, but let's get right back into it. Ace the Skylord had 5 questions. First question, just for me, he said that he wanted me to fantasy book Broken Matt Hardy and his Broken verse into the Lucha Underground mythos. And really, I have literally no knowledge of anything Broken Matt Hardy. I didn't know that a broken verse was even a thing, but apparently he something about 7 deities, so maybe he shows up in Lucha Underground as a a seer, maybe kind of like a prophet type, where he knows about the 7 Aztec gods, and those are his 7 deities, and he can talk to them, and he can maybe deliver messages from the Aztec gods to the mortals and immortals in Lucha Underground and in the Luchaverse. I guess that would be cool, but again, I have very little knowledge of this, so hopefully, hopefully that idea is a good one, because I have very limited knowledge of the whole Matt Hardy sensation. Next question: what do you think about Westworld? And this is for both of us, so John, you can go first.
Here's the funny thing. I dropped off of that and many other shows that I loved because of like how they tantalized my philosophical palate, so to speak. But I think I watched like the first 7 episodes of Westworld, and I love it. And I'm noticing now, I think after, because the first season's probably over, if I had to guess, that a lot of literature is coming out about Westworld and their interpretation of AI and consciousness. So it's definitely having an effect in the culture, which I think is really cool. But as far as what I feel about the show, I don't think you can go wrong with Anthony Hopkins. And he's not even like in the show like all the time, but the rest of the cast I think is insanely talented. And again, if you like really headier stuff like I do, and you like those abstract questions and thinking in that space, like, oh, what would happen if AI had consciousness or this and that, it's definitely the show for you. I honestly, I know, Ashton, you and I talked about like we could just like rewatch it together. I don't even think I'm going to finish out the first season, and when I watch it again, it'll probably just be with you, and then we could go pillar to post with that, because I'd like to give it my full attention for a second time, because it really is something very good. It's just, I think when I broke off it came at a time when like I had a lot going on, and I just never really felt like returning to it. So yeah, I'd like to give it a second go with you when we do that, because what I did watch, I really enjoyed. So yeah, big thumbs up to Westworld on my end.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I have seen very little of Westworld. I've seen, I think, a trailer for it, and it looked really good from the trailer. But I've also heard like theories and stuff on it since then, and I think everything I've heard about the show since the initial trailer almost makes me less interested in it. Like, it looked really good from the trailer, but then like I feel like there's like this big thing where like the main guy has this master plan, and like part of the plan was for him to get killed and stuff, and really like, there was something about how like one of the androids got set free, but were they really free if they were just fulfilling this guy's plan in the first place? And that just I like it when shows like this make you think, but I don't like it when they're super like I don't yeah, contrived. When they're super contrived and like they force you to believe shit that's just absolutely ridiculously unbelievable. Like, I don't have a problem with believing that some guy could make up androids and AI and stuff, but when you ask me to believe that a guy has this plan that involves him getting killed and like all this other stuff going on, that's like this super detailed stuff, and it just gets a little ridiculous for me. So I probably will still end up watching Westworld, but my interest in it has waned since the trailer, sadly.
And hey, man, that's understandable. I think a show like Westworld, it's funny because I know there was like a lot of buildup about it because it was HBO and they had that other show, which the name escapes me, and I love True Detective, and like the first episode like shattered HBO records, but they didn't really know how it was going to go because you had True Detective season 1, which was absolutely amazing. For those that haven't watched it, I highly recommend they go and see it. But then season 2 came out, me and the family couldn't even get through the first episode, and Vince Vaughn was in it, and I was like, this doesn't really feel quite right. So I passed on that. I wonder if the same will happen to Westworld. Like, I think they had a phenomenal first season, and clearly it's generated a lot of buzz. We'll see if they can keep that steam up. But it just clearly, even from the outset, wasn't something for everybody. I haven't even watched the original film on which the series is based. And so I went in, that's the only thing I know of Westworld is the TV show. But yeah, I give it a recommendation, but I can understand if it's not for everybody, certainly, because it really does go a lot of places. And yeah.
Yeah. So, question 3: how loud are the boos going to be in San Antonio when Roman Reigns wins the 2017 Royal Rumble? And then he has in parentheses, it's going to happen. Ha! No, it isn't. He's in the world title match. Suck it.
You know what, though? How stupid are we going to look if he loses that, still ends up entering the role and winning. Like, I still think you're wrong, Ace. Like,
nope, it's not going to happen. Dude, he's not even going to. First of all, the first problem with what you're saying is that would require him to lose the title match, which isn't happening. Even if he does lose the title match, that would require WWE to want to do Owens Reigns again at WrestleMania, and that's definitely not happening. And third of all, it's not happening.
Well, I mean, you hear that, Ace. Ashton's pretty adamant, you know, and there are still people like, oh, we'll see about that. Look, I have to go with my boy Ashton here. I could have believed it, but things that me and him have talked about lately, which I don't want to say too much about because, you know, I mean, Royal Rumble preview predictions, I think is going to be hot this year or next year, really, because it'll be 2017. You know, so I want to be mum about that, but I don't think it's going to happen. But because it's Q&A and we indulge all questions, if Reigns were to win, I don't think it would be a trash in ring scenario, but I think one dumb son of a bitch would be tempted. Like, I think the boos would be raucous. People would be like, what? Again? Are we ever going to get a different Rumble match? I think it would get to the point that when we got to the 2018 Rumble, people would be praying that he'd get injured or something, so there'd be no chance. And even then, he'd probably hobble to the ring and get that last elimination. So, yeah, the boos would be pretty loud if it happened, but thankfully it's not going to, so crisis averted.
Yeah. So up next, fourth question from Ace the Skylord. How long before Charlotte becomes a 16-time women's champion?
You know what? Like, I know, because we got one other question that was a little bit similar to this. And I know there's a lot of talk, like, when is Charlotte going to become a 16-time women's champion? Honestly, though, even being pragmatic, I'd say maybe 3 years. 3 years, maybe 4 most. Because I don't think it's going to happen right away, but I definitely think it's going to happen. Like, it would not surprise me at all. I'm starting to think that when that title got unveiled, that really was just Charlotte's championship. Everybody else is kind of in her orbit, which is sad, but that's just reality as I perceive it. But yeah, even being more conservative in my estimate, I'd say 4 years. What about you, Ashton?
I have a really interesting take on this.
Okay, well then share it with us.
I don't think Charlotte will ever be a 16-time women's champion.
Ah, okay.
I know that it's the meme nowadays to be like, oh, she won it 4 times in like 9 months, and that sucks and all. But at the same time, that's kind of a story that they're doing with her winning on pay-per-view and Sasha winning on Raw. And I think that storyline comes to an end because I think Charlotte is going to lose her first pay-per-view match in a while at WrestleMania 33 to Bayley, if I had to guess.
Right.
So I think that whole Charlotte is undefeated on pay-per-view thing is coming to an end soon enough to kind of keep on being this meme where she just wins it and loses it every month and a half.
Right.
And I mean, she might get to double digits, but I think she's either going to have some kind of injury with all the ridiculous moonsaults that she does, or she's going to lose her passion for the business, given that she didn't even get into it until her late 20s, or she's going to find something else to do. Maybe, I don't know, like, it's not going to be modeling, but maybe like, I don't know, like bodybuilding or something like that. But yeah, I think that Charlotte is not, when we say lifer, we mean somebody who is a wrestling fan and they get into the business and still stay a wrestling fan, and then they end up being super passionate about it and they're in the wrestling business for life because of that. I don't think Charlotte is that kind of person.
Right.
I think that she is going to win, maybe a dozen championships if she's lucky. But I would say she's probably more likely to be in like the 8 to 10 range when she leaves the business or retires. So that's my official, my official prediction.
Well, that was a very thoughtful and well thought out response. All right, I've got really nothing to add to that. We can move on.
Fifth question from Ace the Skylord for Johnny Scumbag. What if Worldwide Underground turns on Johnny Mundo out of jealousy?
Well, I wouldn't blame them because, I mean, have you seen those obliques? But if they do, they're going to be quickly educated on their place. They need to understand that they're nothing without Johnny Mundo, and you don't bite the hand that feeds you. So my question is, if they really are that idiotic, where are they going to eat? Where are they going to wrestle? Because, I mean, Johnny Mundo is their provider. He is their father figure. So yeah, I mean, we'll just see them be stupid and roll the dice if that happens. But look, having talked with them personally, I know Taya isn't that stupid. Jack Evans certainly isn't that stupid. And PJ, he may be a darewolf, but that's a risk even he wouldn't take. So yeah, I think we're good. I think we got this on lock. But yeah, if they were stupid enough to turn on him, he'd get his revenge on them one by one. And I would enjoy every second of it.
Okay, I could dig that. So up next, we had two questions from Super Evil 6668. The first question: do you guys have any thoughts on the now President Garrison on South Park?
Actually, wait, do you want to go first on this since the last question was a Johnny Scumbag question?
No, that's fine. You can go.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say, like, much like you with the Charlotte question earlier, it's very interesting to me how this season played out because I could believe it too because I was reading and I know like I shared with you the same reports. I don't think they anticipated a Trump win because I think they had a whole episode planned out for when Clinton won in a totally different storyline. Here's the thing though, with President Garrison, I don't think their jobs have ever been easier. Look, South Park is a show predicated on pop culture. They keep their finger on the pulse and whatever's going on, especially if you've ever seen like behind the scenes. I know there's one special out there that shows you the production of a South Park episode, and they always do it to the wire. Like it's always right down to the final minute. 7 days to air. Yeah, guys, check it out if you haven't. Because they produce episodes that way, they always keep their finger on the pulse. Even stuff that you heard about maybe even 2 days ago, you'd be shocked to see in a South Park episode that same week. And with President Garrison, their jobs have never been easier because the way they produce episodes and what South Park really is, I mean, Trump is like walking vomit of pop culture. Like something's always happening, whether on Twitter or in a secret meeting that isn't so secret because he blabs about it or this and that. Like just from that character alone, you get so many storylines that either you can accentuate or keep just as they are because they're already absurd on their face. And yeah, I feel like their job has never gotten easier as it relates to that one character because it's literally now writing itself. So, I mean, I love it. I think they capture it well. I think they need to crank up the voltage a little bit because while I liked his presentation in this latest season, I feel like they could go deeper and maybe they will. Maybe they won't. But yeah, I've really liked what they've done so far. So that's my take on it. What about you, Ashton?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you word for word. I feel like Trump is a meme at this point, and South Park. I'm not even going to say they're brilliant because I feel like they're doing the logical thing in kind of taking advantage of that and having a Trump-esque character in their show. You know, it's not like they're doing this super clever, revolutionary, like, oh my God, I can't believe they thought to do that kind of thing. It's not that at all. It's just they're doing the smart thing. They're doing the logical thing. They're doing the thing that makes the most sense and having a Trump parallel character in their universe. And they have endless possibilities with that. And like you said, John, that pretty much writes itself. So yeah, that's pretty much what I feel too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have nothing to add to that. If you want to move on, we can.
All right, up next, we had a second question from Super Evil 6668. Could WWE go out of business in around 40 years' time after all the remaining big names from the past are gone? And when you say out of business, do you mean like going under completely? And in that case, I would say absolutely not. If by going out of business you mean Vince selling the company or Vince dying or different management taking over, it seems inevitable. I'm surprised it hasn't been announced already. I think Vince is kind of winding down, and not even like he's dying. I mean, like literally, he's losing interest in being the owner of the WWE. So I think he's going to sell the company here. Maybe not necessarily soon, but he is going to sell the company in the not so immediate, but still maybe near future. And I think WWE is going to go global. I mean, it's funny because like 5 years ago, we made that video about the WWE's developmental system, about how they should start having developmental territories in different places all over the world with people learning different styles and have like a rotation, and they have the network now, so they can kind of use that to put different shows from all over the world on and add English commentary to it from people that they hire and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, with the network and with the globalization of the developmental system that we actually suggested 5 freaking years ago, I think that they're going to be good. And I mean that for good. I think that they're set.
Oh yeah, completely agree with you. Absolutely. And the thing is, I think when we talk about a business going under in any time frame, whether it's 5 years, we can't be to think that that's just solely the responsibility of the business itself, because we're talking about a whole economy at play here.
Yeah.
And especially with other like dance partners, like, Ground coming into its own, which I really hope in 5 years it really does become that second big boy player, where everybody's really talking, and hopefully TNA will have been snuffed out, and those guys, can hopefully find
But
other work.
even then, though, John, if you think about it, TNA's been around for 15 years now. We thought that they would have been dead years ago, and they still continue to survive by the skin of their teeth. So if TNA can last this freaking long in what seems like perpetual debt, I think WWE can last more than 40 years knowing that freaking like they are constantly like they're making more money now than they ever have, even if the ratings are down. They're still making more money than ever.
Oh yeah, I mean the network I think has shown them promising returns. We've already talked about, or at least you already talked about in your answer, them expanding. They're getting in Chinese markets. They're doing the tournament in the UK. Like WWE, and here's the thing, right? In fact, I'm actually glad this question came up because it makes something that I read recently relevant. Kenny Omega was giving an interview, and I love how passionate he is about New Japan, but I'll talk more about that at a more appropriate time. But he talked about how WWE has pretty much got a monopoly on this shit. Like, it's gotten to the point where WWE is signing these big name people really just to sign them because they can. It's like flexing your muscles, so to speak.
Yep.
And whether or not these guys even make it to TV isn't really the point. It's like WWE seems to be in an age to me, and it could be an age to be wary of, as I think all ages like this are, but I do think they'll be fine and they'll survive. They do seem to be in an age of hyper consumption, not just in terms of, oh, let's produce all this content for other people to consume, but let's consume ourselves by having our fingers in everything. The English market, the Chinese market, let's do this thing in Japan. Hey, let's sign all these guys. They're popular. Let's get their names on our stuff. It's really amazing to me. Like, we're talking about WWE dying when really I think it's at the peak of its life with the network and so much content, everything they're doing. Like, it really is. It's a global powerhouse. And I agree with Kenny Omega. I don't think the term monopoly is hyperbole here. Yes, there are other players and they're wonderful and amazing, but are they viable relative to being competitors to this entity? Not yet, anyway. I can't say yes to any of that. I feel like WWE is in its own little world doing whatever the hell it wants, and it'll continue to be that way for decades, well beyond the 40-year timestamp we got in this question. So yeah, they're not dying anytime soon. If anything, the most that'll happen to them is they get a new face here and there in terms of like managerial and administration. That's it. But I think the wheels will keep on turning. That's just the way I see it.
Exactly. I mean, they've already been around for over 40 years. There's no reason to think they can't go another 40. So, next up, we had 5 questions from Aladdin Paladin. First question: is it a controversial opinion to state that Taker's biker gimmick should have lasted at least one more year longer than it did?
I don't think there's anything controversial about that. I was quite a fan of Biker Taker. And the funny thing about that gimmick was I felt like it worked whether he was a heel or a face. I love the heel side of it because he was all about respect and you will respect me. And as a face, it was pretty much, again, still kind of about that respect thing. Like, I am the veteran, but I'm taking on this role of locker room leader. And I'm like this, not necessarily a sage of wisdom, but he's just like, hey, man, I'm just doing my thing. So I feel like it worked on both sides. If it lasted one more year, I don't think anybody would have batted an eye about it. What about you, Ashton?
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest problem with Biker Taker wasn't him, it was who he was against, because the way that they treated DDP was just horrible. And I felt like the Biker Taker gimmick had a lot more potential if they would have given him a better foil to work against than like creepy stalker who wants to bang your wife.
Yeah, that I agree with. Biker Taker hasn't always had the most, lustrous history in terms of like, oh, all these great storylines just brimming with brilliance. That was a bad way to really, get out of the gate. But stuff that he would do later, in the era that I'm most familiar with, like the Ruthless Aggression era, I enjoyed. I mean, who could ever forget his feud with Jeff Hardy that really was really TV based, and that would be kind of my template of a quality TV feud. So yeah, good stuff. I wouldn't have minded it lasting one more year.
Yeah. Next question is also for both of us. Actually, no, this is just for you, John. What are
Oh,
your thoughts on Sword Art Online? Because I know it's either a widely loved or hated kind of thing. So I guess Sword Art Online is a very divisive show or anime or whatever the hell it is. I don't know. And they're asking you what you think of it, John.
Oh, I'm sad because I love when I get like personal questions the same way I love seeing you get personal questions like about the NFL or something, but I really can't answer this substantively because I've never watched it. The thing about Sword Art Online is I've had a lot of
Dude,
friends
when
that are
I
big
thought that
fans.
this was for both of us, I thought about what my answer to it would be, and all I could think of was this is gonna blow your mind, Subject 18, because I don't love it or hate it. Basically I don't care about it.
Right. And it's not even that I don't care because when I first heard the premise, I was like, wow, that does sound interesting. And I have friends, like I have like a handful of friends that are really, and I use this term affectionately because I would describe myself as a nerd, definitely like anime and video game nerds. And they loved Sword Art Online. They're like, oh man, this is amazing. But like maybe one day I'll fit it in my anime itinerary. But right now I'm thinking about like Food Wars. I'm thinking about Attack on Titan season 2, and I heard a trailer drop recently, and it was amazing. So yeah, it's not really in my window. It's not really in my line of sight, so to speak, right now. But I haven't forgotten about it. I have friends that really love that, and I've been meaning to check it out.
Yeah,
So
I've heard about it. Isn't that it's an anime, right? It's the anime
yeah,
where like a bunch of kids get like they play this game that's Sword Art Online, but then they get stuck in the game and they have to play it as the characters, right?
exactly. Yeah.
That actually looks like an interesting anime to me. That's something that I would be willing to check out too.
Dude, see, with me and anime, like even that anime you and I heard about on Up Up Down Down when the Xavier Woods had that woman from Crunchyroll on, they were talking about that figure skating anime. I'm seeing that everywhere now too, particularly from Shroom on Twitter, who you guys should all follow. He makes amazing like wrestling-based Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I love them. I'm still waiting for TWitWoW versions. I just want a Yu-Gi-Oh card. I can even have 0 defense points, even though I'm very defensive as a person. But this isn't about me. And I've seen him like post images. I tried getting into Detective Conan a little bit. I might get back to that because I hear Funimation might actually be going back to that property because they dropped it off for a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I have a good relationship with anime. It's just funny when people ask me about anime that I know is popular, but I really just haven't given a second glance at all.
John, I feel like didn't you tell me before, and didn't you even answer a Q&A question before that your favorite anime is Code Geass?
Yes, love that anime so much.
Do you know about the Code Geass abridged series?
No,
Oh
no,
my!
you know what? I feel
I've
like
seen a clip from it before where one of the characters was talking about how like they were in like a store or something and they were in one of the aisles and they were like, guy, all I'm seeing is soup, there's just soup here. And the other one was like, well, no, go to the next aisle. He's like, it's just more soup. Well, what store are you in? I'm in the soup store. It just looked amazing.
Oh, and while we're still on this, and then this is gonna be all I've said about it because I don't want to completely deviate from Sword Art Online, which again I just want to emphasize I may check out in the future. I definitely agree with Jarveris. Like he just said, I'm just ready for Dragon Ball Super on Toonami. Me
Oh, I
fucking too,
know.
because
Yes.
that resident bitch bag James is like, oh John, you've got to watch Dragon Ball Super. You've got to watch. And first of all, I'm like, bitch, don't fucking censor me. First of all, second of all, okay, like I knew if I was gonna watch Dragon Ball Super, I had to have it be dubbed. Normally, I'm not such a snob. I can actually watch anime dubbed or subbed. The big thing is though, DBZ was my childhood. Like,
Yeah.
I can't listen to a Vegeta or Piccolo speak unless it's Chris Sabat doing the voice acting. That's how deeply ingrained it is for me. So when I heard they got those guys doing those roles, in fact, I think only Kid Trunks was the only one they couldn't get the original voice actor for, which that really doesn't matter to me. I'm like, yes, okay, now we're talking. Now we can do it. And I know Sean Schemmel, the guy that does Goku, he loves voicing Goku. I think he'd do anything with Goku to get that check because he is that character. Nobody else is going to do
and
that.
especially with Vegeta, we can't have a season or an episode even of Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Super or whatever without Vegeta having that iconic Kakarot voice.
Yes.
It's
Dude,
so
Chris
good.
Sabat to me, yeah. Chris Sabat to me is one of the most talented voice actors working right now. And you know what? If anybody's like, "Oh, John, that's hyperbole," fuck your face, because Chris Sabat's amazing. Chris Sabat is fucking amazing. No, because he does Vegeta, he does Piccolo, and he does other characters that I can't even like name off the top of my head right now, but he does a litany of characters in the Dragon Ball universe. And like I a little while ago got Dragon Ball Xenoverse on Steam. Great game, by the way, for those that may be curious about picking it up with. I know Xenoverse 2 around the corner. And I think that had the original voice cap too, except for Kid Gohan, who's voiced by Colleen Klinkenbeard, who does the voice of Luffy on One Piece, which that shocked me too. I'm like, wow, they got her? That's fucking awesome. But yeah, she's a great voice actor too, but Chris Sabat to me is king. He is freaking amazing. I can't wait to see him get back super. So yes, Jarveris, I agree with you.
All right. So no opinion from either one of us on Sword Art Online beyond just it looks cool. We might check it out. Up next, third question from subject 18. Actually, I think I skipped one from subject 18. Yeah. Oh God, did I skip a lot? Oh my God, I feel so bad. Okay, we got that. We got that. We got that. Okay, I skipped Aladdin Paladin's questions, so we're gonna go back to those. The first one we did, that was the 40-year, or that was the taker biker gimmick thing that we answered. So
Right.
the second question from Aladdin Paladin, I apologize for skipping around. I don't know what happened there. But the second question from Aladdin Paladin, just for me specifically, what is the worst booked faction in history and why? And he did specify no Nexus, but I wouldn't have even needed to say the Nexus because my answer is the Straight Edge Society.
Yeah, that is such a shame. Why did you hate it so much? Because I know this is a question just for you.
Well, I didn't think I really had to explain myself here, but I will anyway. The Straight Edge Society was a faction that had universe-altering potential for the WWE. They could have used it to turn Rey Mysterio heel if they wanted. They could have used it to have, CM Punk have sort of a reign of terror akin to the Triple H 02 to 05 reign of terror, but they didn't. They had, this was like the ultimate CM Punk is giving you chicken salad and you're going out of your way to turn it into chicken shit. And I
Right.
feel like, yeah, and it was just, and I think even though it was horribly booked, I think the biggest tragedy coming out of it was Serena because they had her, like, they hired her. She was a good wrestler. They maybe didn't like force her, but they definitely encouraged her and kind of implied that if she did get implants that they would maybe push her more. So she did. She got the breast implants. They shaved her head and then they did nothing with her beyond that. They let her go. And she was a legitimately good wrestler. And I think most people, that are attracted to women would say that she was a hot female. She was really attractive. She was like the whole package. She was everything you could possibly want from a female performer, and they let her go for seemingly no reason. So that to me was like the biggest mistake, biggest tragedy of the Straight Edge Society. Of course, Luke Gallows was another big one. Joey Mercury. I think we've found out over the years that they legitimately have a lot of talent, and that there's a lot more that could have been done with them. And WWE was just like, we know that you're giving us the easiest jobs that we could ever possibly have, but I think we're going to push the Big Show instead.
I know this wasn't my question to answer, so forgive me, but I just have to remark, like, I knew about the whole Serenity. It was like, oh, shave your head and then we're going to fire you anyway. I did not know about the breast implants. Like, that just made me go from angry knowing that history to really just straight up offended. Like, what? You put that woman through all that and with nothing to show for it. That is such bullshit. Wow.
Yeah. So, up next we had. Oh, that's right. Yeah, they let her go because she wasn't actually straight edge in real life, even though she was, and playing a character on TV. Because Vince is a carny prick. Up next, we had our third question. This is just for you, John, from Aladdin Paladin. Back in 2011, WWE did Awesome Truth, which everyone liked, for the moment. And what he wants to know is, would you have liked John Morrison joining the Awesome Truth at the time?
Here's the here's the thing, and I'm not bitter at all. I would have liked WWE to have done anything with John Morrison in 2011, particularly his later 2011, because it just fucking stunk to high heaven. I don't really think he would have meshed well, though. I mean, I think for him to have meshed well, they would have had to have committed to a heel turn and perhaps like some alterations to his character. And I don't think they were committed to that, because if they were committed to that, I feel like they would have done it forever and a day ago, which thank God for Lucha Underground that doesn't move at a fucking snail's pace. Really, I don't think Morrison was the issue. What I feel like he would have been a contribution, sure, but not really a big one. I actually really liked Awesome Truth as Just Truth and Miz. I just hated how they were booked. Like, in my own nerdgasm kind of reality, they would have beaten Cena and Rocket Survivor Series. They would have gotten that huge fucking win and put everybody on notice. Especially after you beat up everybody inside Hell in a Cell and like have the whole roster come out in that great imagery, you capitalize on it by having them lose in a standard tag team match, even though, like you couldn't even really have him handle Cena on his own. Just really horribly booked. So Morrison being added or subtracted really wouldn't have made much of a difference, but yeah, he would have been good.
I think he would have fit well with them, though, if for no other reason, because he tagged with R-Truth and he has the tag team with Miz too. So like he has history with both guys, so that could have worked.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're talking about the Dirt Sheet and Black Magic and the White Shadow all in one glorious package. So yeah, it's great stuff.
The dirty Black Magic and the White Shadow. I don't know. I mean,
you tried, which is more than I can say for WWE at this career.
Yeah. Next question is for both of us. Do you guys agree that Matanza's end game is dying by sacrificing himself to the gods, but in a heroic way? No.
No, I'm going to say no to that too.
Thing Matanza has an end game because his character never needs to die, and I don't want him to leave Lucha Underground.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's too great. So,
fifth question from Aladdin Paladin. What is the seventh tribe, and who would you like to see in it? John, you go first, but I've already kind of answered this already in previous episodes.
Who would I like to see be in an Aztec? I mean, really, I'd love for Mundo to have.
The question is, what is the seventh tribe?
Oh,
because we already know for sure that we have Deer Tribe, Rabbit Tribe, Snake Tribe, or I guess Reptile Tribe, Jaguar Tribe, Moth Tribe, and Eagle Tribe. But what's the seventh tribe? And then knowing, what your opinion is on what the seventh tribe is, who would you like to see in that seventh tribe?
Oh God. Maybe, yeah, this is hard. Maybe like a Spider Tribe, given Sexy Star's recent trauma. And if that's the case, I don't even know who I'd want in that tribe. Because if I was answering this question jokingly, I'd say we could have an Ab Tribe and Johnny Mundo and Worldwide Underground would be in that tribe. But no, I really want to be serious, because you can only be an asshole so much and have it be entertaining. So yeah, I mean, I guess a Spider Tribe, but the difficulty there is like, who really would comprise that tribe? Maybe, because you see, I would even have to go outside Lucha Underground and maybe even bring people in, but even then I wouldn't even know who I'd want to bring into that. So yeah, I really struggle with this one, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I feel like I already kind of answered it though in one of our Lucha Underground reviews when I said that I think the seventh tribe is the Death Tribe.
Right.
It makes sense, because then you get Mill in there, you get Matanza in there, Vampiro's probably in there. You could fill it out pretty easily.
Definitely. Like that one pretty much writes itself. And I believe it was Cliff and Chad said, the Ab Tribe, he could just, bring Tara over. I mean, I guess, but I mean, a tribe needs to.
I think the Ab Tribe was in response to you saying something about the Ab Tribe, but then Tara was in response to you saying Spider Tribe.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I said Spider Tribe seriously, and then I'm racking names to try and think of who to bring in. And he's like Terra, and yeah, I guess that could work, for obvious reasons. Yeah. But a tribe, I think a tribe needs at least a minimum. Well, actually, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, because Puma's the last member of his tribe, so maybe we could do something similar.
Nightclaw, though.
Yeah, Nightclaw's so good. Oh man,
he's in the Jaguar tribe, though, John. He and Puma are in the same tribe.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I'd say Terra and maybe one other person that she'd bring along, but you'd have to ask her.
Cortez
so if you really,
Castro.
There you go with the spider on his mask. So Terra and Cortez Castro. That's your fucking.
And you know what?
Tribe.
Just because, let's bring in Jesse Goddard's too.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I actually, you know what? Given how much Chris Roach loves Big Brother and Jesse Goddard's whole history with the show and his look, he might be able to do well in Lucha Underground.
Hey man, do you think I'm saying Jesse Goddard's name for no reason? I think he's actually pretty decent, and yeah, he's got a connection to Roach too.
Absolutely, and I think he's even liked our tweets before, so he knows about us. He sees us, and we see you too, Jesse. You and those muscles of yours. So,
Mr. Pectacular.
Yeah, really. So yeah, Spider Tribe, Death Tribe.
Although this is a lot less likely because he's a CMLL guy, not a AAA guy, but I'd love to see Marco Corleone, formerly known as Mark Jindrak, in Lucha Underground.
Oh, dude, I gotta be honest. If there was any guilty pleasure I had in the Ruthless Aggression era, it was the reflection of perfection, Mark Jindrak.
So and that's another one. I think Pentagon is probably in the Death Tribe as well.
Yeah, that would make sense. So yeah, you got Death Tribe and you got my Spider Tribe. Yeah, that totally works out.
Yeah. So all right. So I feel happy now that we had answered Aladdin Paladin's questions. I apologize for skipping them at first, but we got through all of them. First question now from Subject 18, because you already answered the Sword Art Online question. That was actually his second question. But the first question was, would you guys have ever removed Kane's mask if you had the choice? And I think that's a pretty easy answer for me. No, I wouldn't have. He was so much cooler when he actually had that air of mystique about him. On him would have kept the mystique for maybe not ever, but definitely for a lot longer.
Yeah, let me put it to you like this. First, I mean, the straightforward answer, no. And really what I think the tragedy about that is, I don't know if I'm relating to anybody, but I know when I was a kid, sometimes I would break shit and I would try and rearrange it only with my hands, no glue, no tape or anything. And obviously you're never going to be able to arrange it. That's how I feel like WWE handled Kane. Because when they took off the mask and then they wanted to bring him back, let's put the mask back on. It'll be like it never happened. And it just really gets to an insulting degree. I've already spoken about in other commentaries, maybe even in other Q&As, how Kane in 2002 and 2003 with the mask when he was babyface, I would have pushed to the fucking moon. I would have given him a strong world title run because he had so much fan support and everything. I would have given him the strap. It just came at the worst time with Triple H's reign of terror. But I thought them removing the mask, when you're a kid, you can enjoy it because you're still wrapped up in the kayfabe and everything. But if you're trying to see the forest for the trees, I thought it was a terrible maneuver. So absolutely not. I wouldn't have.
I mean, if anything, I think the biggest reason they took the mask off of him in the first place is because he was really struggling to work with it on, and he felt like maybe he couldn't have main event caliber 15 plus minute matches because of the mask. But even then, you just get a freaking just pay a little bit more money to get a little bit better, more form-fitting mask that doesn't cover your freaking vision so much.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just wondering, you really couldn't have given him a different mask, or even do a compromise where maybe you just do almost a oh god, what's the name of that opera? Whatever. Yeah, where the half the mask, Phantom of the Opera. Yeah, with half the mask and half the face. And, at least that at best, you took away all the mystique and then the insulting part of, let's just put the mask back on. Shut the fuck up. So, no, absolutely not.
All right. Like I said, you already did Subject 18's second question. So, Subject 18's third question. Guys like Doctor Strange?
I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was great. Benedict Cumberbatch is an amazing actor. Really cool to see him in something that wasn't Sherlock, even though I'm a fan of that as well. Almost makes me want to watch the Star Trek movie that he was in, because like I just am such a fan of his work. Yeah, Doctor Strange, I think it's a great addition to the MCU. And I'm really looking forward to future projects. And on that note, because I already know like one thing is going to be a part of that, I know you're super hyped for, bro. I'll hand the question to you. What did you think about Doctor Strange?
I really enjoyed it. It was one of those movies though where like it kind of suffered from all of the same problems that most, if not all, Marvel Cinematic Universe movies suffer from, in that the villain was super forgettable. So like I feel like it was a really enjoyable movie during the time that we were watching it, but at the same time, it's also got a forgettability factor where for certain parts of it, but like I feel like the thing I remember most Doctor Strange is the freaking cape. The I don't know what the name of it is, but the cape, that the levitation cape or whatever it is probably what I remember most about the movie. So it was a really good movie to watch, like in the moment. Like I really enjoyed watching the movie, but it's not really a super memorable movie in the grand scheme of things. And I really do. I chalk that up to being forgettable.
Yeah, I can appreciate those sentiments. To me, I think what I love best about the film isn't even really like everything that Doctor Strange does. Though visually the film is gorgeous. I definitely have to agree with Zero Cool 666. Doctor Strange was visually awesome, but story wise, it was just like Iron Man 1. You definitely do get that feeling, but I will say I did enjoy the origin story. I did agree with some of the critiques that Double Toasted had out of it, though, mainly origin, and yet he gets in an accident driving. Like, I character of that personally, but I mean, yeah, really enjoyable film. I liked it. I feel like, yeah, I wish we actually could have spent a little bit more time with him before he became Doctor Strange, because I was really enjoying that story, and he was so good at playing the asshole. But yeah, I mean, now that I think he's established and he's going to be in the MCU, I can't wait to see what he does in the future. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I really feel like animated Doctor Strange movie that came out in I think like 2011, and I actually thought that was better from a story standpoint than 2016's Doctor Strange movie with Benedict Cumberbatch in it, because there was this great moment in the animated movie where is using kind of these like workarounds because his hands don't work, so he's using like these workarounds where like he has stuff like taped to his hands, or he's got like different leverage things working so that his hands don't play a factor, and he's using different tools and like I said, different workarounds to build a wall. Like he's using these big ass stones and building this wall, and then the wise one comes up to, or the ancient one, or I forget what her name is, but it was a dude in the cartoon. He comes up to him and he's like, this whole thing is a mental problem. This wall doesn't even actually exist. It's a mental block, and you need to realize that, and you need to overcome your mental barriers in order to be able to use your hands again and stuff. And like I feel like they attacked the story much better in the cartoon version than in movie with Benedict Cumberbatch in it.
Yeah, and see, I never saw the cartoon. I wish I would now, because that sounds amazing. One thing I will say, too, from a narrative standpoint, and again, this is a problem that you could say Marvel movies suffer from. I mean, a Marvel movie that sticks out in my mind for this problem was the first Thor, which I only really loved it more from a sentimental standpoint, because I got to see it with a very dear friend of mine before he got deployed for the Marines. But yeah, like Thor 1 had a weak ass villain. I feel like that happens a lot of the time. And Doctor Strange,
Wait. Thor 1 wasn't Thor 1's villain frickin' Loki? He was amazing.
Yeah, but I didn't really care for the final battle. I thought Loki kind of got bitched out there. Like, I like Loki, how the actor portrays him and the character, but the final battle to me was so anticlimactic. I really couldn't get into it. And I kind of felt the same way in Doctor Strange. Like, the guy setting all this up, the guy who plays him, I love him too, because he was Hannibal Lecter in the NBC version of Hannibal, which is so much better than the Anthony Hopkins movies. I was so pissed when it was canceled. So I was jazzed to see him in this. But yeah, I was kind of like meh on him. And then like the big entity, I forget its name, that they were trying to, have, come to Earth to grant paradise.
Dormammu.
Say that again.
Dormammu?
Dormammu, yeah. Like, it was a clever workaround in beating the villain, and I like that because it was more of a cerebral solution. But at the same time, it's like, wow, that seemed simpler than I thought it was going to be. I really want to see like this big, grand conflict, and it's just something I don't really know if Marvel's gotten that right yet for my money. But I mean, yeah, still overall an enjoyable film. But if we're talking about things we didn't like, that was definitely something that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth a little bit. So.
Dormammu's like the whole exchange, it basically felt like Doctor Strange just annoyed Dormammu into leaving Earth.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that was kind of crappy. But that I enjoyed the movie while I watched it, and if I ever watch it again, I'm sure I'll enjoy it again. So up next, fourth question from Subject 18. What do you guys think of the whole Eugene character and what WWE did with it?
Here's the thing. It's funny the vantage point that I come at this question with, because I was still very young when the Eugene character kind of broke on the scene. And of course, like he really gained center stage during Benoit's world title run, which of course I was marky as hell for. When I was young then, I liked the Eugene character, and it worked in the sense that it evoked sympathy from me. Looking back on it now, I don't think it's the most offensive thing that WWE done. I feel like they could have been a lot worse, personally. And on the whole, I think the character is pretty harmless, especially because anybody that ever did harm to Eugene got their comeuppance. Like Triple H really never beat Benoit, even using Eugene, and then Eugene ended up turning on him and all that stuff. So it could have been worse. To me, Eugene can best be summed up as it is what it is for me. That's really how I feel about it. What about you?
I think it was biggest problem with it was just how far they went with the stereotyping, because you know I, it's a really sensitive subject, and I feel like handled it with about as much subtlety as you can imagine the WWE to handle a sensitive subject with. And yeah, I think it definitely could have been handled better. Like you said, what are you going to do? It happened, it's in the past, and as bad as it was, I guess it could have been worse, because they could have treated him like a freaking doormat, and he could have been like this completely incompetent character who could never get anything done. And if I remember correctly, when he actually got in the ring, he actually won some matches. He actually looked like, holy crap, this guy can actually wrestle. Like, how's this happening? And really, the most people don't even look at is what a waste of Nick Dinsmore's talent.
Yeah, that is the one thing that really kind of offends my sensibility. Because here's the thing, like, if it surprises some people that I'm not necessarily outraged by the portrayal, to have outrage would mean to have expectation to begin with and have those expectations fall short. I never expect WWE to handle sensitive subject matters with any kind of finesse or subtlety, and then that's just BTQ and that kind of, because like, okay, well, what do they view as positive representation? I'll tell you, it'll have a jarring conflict with reality of how it should be done. So really to be outraged, I think would be preceded by having expectations and having them violently fall short. I wouldn't with a Eugene character or any disabled character. Really, I'm amazed that they handled Zach Gowen as well as they did. And I really don't think they got too offensive with that. I feel like that was far better than Eugene. But going back to the performer, yeah, I mean, you hear Nick Dinsmore speak and you see him work elsewhere, and it's like, yeah, this guy's solid. Like, he knows what he's doing in there. And you saddle him with this. I mean, the most he did with the Eugene character, he had the program with Triple H, and he had a world tag title reign with Regal. So I guess not all that bad of a career, but to know that that is what your career is going to really be defined by, was this character, you might have wanted a better legacy, but you'd have to ask Dinsmore, but I definitely agree. It did seem like kind of a waste.
Yeah. All right, so that is the fourth question from Subject 18. He now has a fifth question specifically for John. So, John, Mundo was returned to WWE and get a push. How would you book his big title win and reign?
Ooh. You know what? If Johnny Mundo was to come in, I would have him be heel because again, heel Johnny Mundo is best Johnny Mundo to me. I would have his big title win come at the expense of babyface Seth Rollins. They already had that online beef. I would capitalize on that. I would have Mundo, come in and say, I did all the stuff you were doing and then some. And I would kind of do a work shoot with him because we're in the reality era. And I'd have him say, I got a pinched nerve in my damn neck for it. And I came back and all they kept telling me was, we have nothing for you. You blew your knee out and all you did was whine about it on Twitter and you came back and you won a world title. And he said, I'm better than you, Rollins. I'm a better athlete. I'm a better star. I'm everything. But say it in a Johnny Mundo way. And then I'd have him beat Seth Rollins in dirty fashion. And I'd have them have like a 3 pay-per-view feud with the third pay-per-view culminating in a ladder match where I'd be cool with either outcome. Either Seth gains the belt back or Johnny Mundo retains again. So yeah, I really for the big title win, I don't want to go too far in the future because we'd be here all night, but I'd have it come at the expense of Seth Rollins, and that would be the big program, would be babyface Seth Rollins. So, and as a heel, of course. So that's how I would book it.
Yeah, they could really kind of book Mundo as sort of Seth Rollins plus, but the big difference maker is that Seth as a babyface, is trying to win clean, and Mundo is stooping to every low possible. Eye
Yeah,
pokes, low blows, ref bumps, just everything.
exactly.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
perfect. I love that. All right, that was just for you, so I'm not going to add any more to the discussion. But up next, we had 4 questions from Jordan Amos. First question: uh, pick. Oh, this is interesting. Pick 5 people from the wrestling world as a whole who could succeed in the Bullet Club. Now, the ironic thing is, since this question was posted, we've probably had 5 more people join the Bullet Club. But alas, John, I'll let you take this first.
I think a heel Roman Reigns would do really well in the Bullet Club as kind of that muscle, especially with like Tama Tonga already in there. You can continue like that Samoan connection and really, Fale is the muscle in the sense that he's big. Roman Reigns is the muscle in the sense that he's a goddamn thoroughbred, or how I would present him, obviously. So heel Roman Reigns definitely. Let's see who else. No, I was gonna say Roderick Strong, but I'm not really feeling it when I visualize it, so I won't say him. Uh Seth Rollins, I guess, again. Like he just has a look to him. Like you put him in a Bullet Club t-shirt, that kind of looks right. Sasha Banks, she's a wrestling nerd. I feel like getting a female talent in the Bullet Club would be really cool. So yeah, maybe her, maybe somebody like Emma, if we wanted to continue in that female vein, either Emma or Sasha Banks. They said 5, so I've named well, technically 4, but really I'm kind of waffling on a female because I'd love a female in the Bullet Club. 2 other guys I'd like to see in there that I could see working. Buddy Murphy, I feel could do well. He's got a great look, and he's really and actually start booking him consistently. I would like that. And final guy that I could pick. I'm kind of waffling on Kevin Owens, so I'm gonna just kind of stay mum about that. Maybe. Well, AJ Styles already led Bullet Club, so that doesn't count. I'd love to just cheat and be like, oh, AJ can return.
Yeah,
Fuck.
5 members to join the Bullet Club: AJ Styles, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, Finn Balor. And we just need one more.
I'm gonna say like a fucking Shinsuke for a surprise twist. King of Strong Style, King of Bullet Club. And he just goes in, you throw that guy a shirt, and he throws knees at everybody else. Perfect.
I'm gonna take kind of a different approach here, and rather than coming up with 5 different people, I'm going to assume that the 5th member of Worldwide Underground is Ricky Mandel, and have Worldwide Underground join the Bullet Club as a faction.
Yeah. Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
Hey man, New Japan talents can work in Lucha Underground and vice versa. They don't necessarily, they don't share talents in the way that like New Japan and ROH do. But we've already seen guys like Ricochet show up in New Japan and still be cool with working both New Japan and Lucha Underground. And I think that would be amazing if we got the five worldwide underground people in New Japan and they join the Bullet Club, and we can have Jack, Johnny, and PJ challenge for the never six-man tag titles. We can have,
Yes.
yeah, and we can have, Ricky Mandel can kind of be the designated jobber of the group, kind of like what, like Bushi is for Los Ingobernables, or like, freaking, you know, there are a few guys in Bullet Club that are kind of those designated job guys, like Yujiro
Right.
and of course, now that they got freaking Bone Soldier, aka Captain New Japan, he's that guy too. So yeah, those are the five that I would add,
Oh,
or the four established Worldwide Underground people and Ricky Mandel.
dude, I want it now. Like, I just gotta say, because I know Mundo already does, I'm sure, like in his off season when Lucha Underground's not on the air, like his improv classes and his acting. But if he was like wrestling a full time schedule, I want to see him in a G1 climax now.
Oh, that would be so good. Oh my god, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I on that.
Oh man. All right, that was fun. So, second question from Jordan: choose one person from New Japan, WWE's main roster, NXT, Lucha Underground, and Ring of Honor to form a new stable.
Oh,
And what would be the name of the stable? Okay. All right. I'm going first on this one. So here we go. From New Japan, I would pick Ishii. From WWE, I would pick Cesaro. From NXT, I would pick Samoa Joe. From Lucha Underground, I would pick Cage. And from ROH, I would pick Donovan Dijak. And I would call the faction the Skyscrapers, and they would be complete badasses and dominate everyone and obliterate the competition and hold every title, and everyone else can go screw themselves.
all right. So let's see. New Japan, NXT. Did they say PWG?
Oh no! It was New Japan, NXT, WWE's main roster, Lucha Underground, and Ring of Honor.
Okay. Ah, shit. Okay. New Japan, Shibata.
Okay.
NXT. I would say. You know what? I'm gonna say Shinsuke Nakamura for
Oh
NXT.
jeez. Okay. You really like using Nakamura from NXT. This is the second time now we've gotten him
Hey,
in
Nakamura
one of
is one
these
of the best.
scenarios.
One of the best in the world right now. You're damn right. I'm gonna use him. NXT or no, not NXT. LU. Sorry. LU. You know what? I'm gonna say Killshot for LU.
Ooh, okay.
WWE main roster. Now let me think about this for a second because I know the scheme I want to make, not necessarily the players. Who would really fit the mold in WWE main roster? I'm trying to think. God damn, who could really fit? Not a Rollins, not Owens. Ah, fuck. You know what? No, that wouldn't work either because that's technically NXT. And plus, I don't really like how that jives. Fuck. You know what? I'll skip that. What's the other promotion that I had to do? WWE main roster and what else?
ROH.
ROH. Okay, let me think ROH real quick. God, why is this so hard? I'll do oh God, what's his Silas Young. I'll do Silas Young for him. And then WWE main roster, we come back. Who would do that? Who would fucking fit that role? I don't know. This is pissing me off. You know what? I'll do Baron Corbin. I'll do Baron Corbin on the main roster. My faction would be called Strike Force because they're all excellent strikers in their own way. Like Baron Corbin can throw an excellent right hook. Shinsuke's got the knees. Oh, who did actually no? In ROH, I already had a name in mind. I'm going to change Silas Young. I'm sorry, to Kyle O'Reilly. I already had ROH planned out because Kyle O'Reilly could be
Okay.
a great striker. And then, yeah, Baron Corbin is the weakest, admittedly, but I really couldn't think of many great strike wrestlers on the main roster WWE. So, I mean, if Brian was still competing, Brian would have been my pick. AJ, I guess, is okay because he can have those flurry of strikes. So, really, if not Baron, I guess AJ would be my alternate. But yeah, it would just be a faction of just really great strike wrestlers, and I'd call them Strike Force. So, that's my faction.
Nice. I can dig that. Yeah. All right. Well, I actually came up with a slightly less generic idea while we were talking, or while you were talking. So I thought, all right, well, you know, I know it says 5 wrestlers, but I'm going to choose 5 entities because I feel like, you know, it's a little more fluid that way. I think this would be a really interesting one. I would take Nakamura. This is going to blow
Right.
your mind when I finish. I'm going to take Nakamura from NXT. I'm going to take Natalia from the main roster, the
Okay.
Young Bucks from Ring of Honor. I'm going to take Tanahashi from New Japan, and I'm going to take Marty the Moth from Lucha Underground. And I'm going to call this faction of 5 entities, or 6 people if you include the Young Bucks, the Royal Flush, because we have the King of Strong Style, the Queen of Hearts, the Jackson Brothers, that's the Young Bucks, the Ace of New Japan, and Marty is my Joker.
Wow. That's incredible. I love it. Yes. Sign the dotted line on that immediately. Absolutely.
All right, so third question from Jordan. What do you think of a Riddler character in Lucha Underground, and who in the wrestling world today could pull it off?
I'll go first since you went first on the last question. I'd love a Riddler character. I actually, a little confession here as far as my Batman fandom goes, which isn't too wide, but, you know, wide enough. Riddler was actually one of my favorite villains, and I thought he was always so underrated, though, of course, everybody is when Joker has such a looming shadow. I quite enjoyed the Riddler. Uh, maybe you could give Kazarni some work and he could do the Riddler character, but I'm trying to think of people that I know of that could do it. But yeah, I mean, in all sincerity, like his diction and everything, if you actually had him just speak in riddles and not like carnival speak, that probably could work. As far as anybody else, I'm really not too sure, to be honest. But yeah, I'd love a
You
Riddler
know, it's
character in Lucha
funny
Underground.
because I feel like Lucha Underground already has the best option for a Riddler character on their roster, and that would be Paul London.
Yeah, he really does have that kind of vibe, doesn't he? I agree.
Yeah. I feel like he already kind of is sort of a Riddler esque character. I mean, he's got the top hat and the cane already. You know, that's a kind of Riddler esque. He kind of talks kind of like the that would work really well. I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah, there you go. I love that. So not really much more I can add. I think you had a perfect pick with Paul London. I think we can move on.
Okay, and you know this might lower our total from 78 down to 77 because this isn't actually a question, but Jordan Amos just wanted to say, and I found this hilarious. He thinks we would like Archer.
Oh, well, good news for you, Jordan. We don't like Archer. We love it. I personally think it's an amazing cartoon. And yeah, I quite enjoy it.
Yeah, we've been watching Archer for a while now, so we don't really talk about it though. But yeah, it's still we still watch it, and we're still trying to catch up because we don't watch it like every month or anything. It's just when we get into that Archer mood, we just kind of pick up where we last left off and continue watching. And yeah, it's a really really good show, and I think my favorite episode to date is the one where it had like a weird like trippy crossover with Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, that was great. I personally I'm so far behind in what's actually going on, so hope there are no spoilers in chat because I know we're watching it together at our own pace, but I can't wait to catch up on it because I really do love the cast and I just think it's great and really enjoyable.
Yeah. All right. So up next we had oh I have those were all Jordan Amos's questions. I actually have those listed twice, so we're losing questions. We're actually going from 78 down to 73 because I had 4 listed as Ginger Games, which were also Jordan Amos. Plus, one of the 4 that I had listed under Jordan Amos wasn't a question; it was just the whole Archer thing. So really,
Right.
73 questions today. So we're kind of going down. It's okay though, because it means we won't take as long to finish. But up next, we had 5 questions from Ella Says Stuff.
One of my favorites. What do we got this month?
Well, first question is names you like that you might give your kids if you ever have any. And I believe you went first for the last one, so I'll go first for this one. I have no intentions to ever have children, and if I ever do, it'll be adoption, which means they'll already have a name. So this doesn't really concern me, but I suppose if I did have to come up with a name, it would be probably something completely unique that I've never heard of before, because I don't like the idea of just naming a kid like something that is already a thing. John, I love you, but I wouldn't want to name my kid John because that's a common name. I wouldn't want to name my kid like Tyler or Kyle or anything like that either. So I would want to come up with something, and I can't just come up with that on the spot. It would have to be reflective of the kid, and I would have to actually, be in the kid's presence in order to come up with it. So that's my answer.
Here's the thing with me, and it's funny how circumstances change, because I used to be like adamantly like no kids, no kids, and I'm still not looking to have kids right now. I don't want to make anybody fucking worry, but being in a relationship and being with somebody that makes me as happy as my current girlfriend currently does, I have kind of revisited the question. I'm more sympathetic to Ashton's position on the second half, that I would much rather adopt, and I've told my girlfriend this, because I'd rather give a child a better life than bring a child into the world that really is, and I don't mean to get all nihilist on you people, but really does seem to be going to shit. But if I was to have kids, unfortunately, I can't name them after philosophers. I had a conversation with my girlfriend about this. I'm like, Heraclitus is an amazing name for a son, and she's like, no. So that sucks that I can't do any philosophy-based children, or maybe I can, and she just doesn't have to know it. But we'll have to hammer that out. But if I was to name a kid something, I know for one thing,
Descartes Altman.
I know, Descartes, get back here. Dad, I think, therefore, fuck yourself. Hey, you come back here. I read that word. You come back here. Oh, you son of a bitch. You get back here right now. Before. Yes, Dad. Are you done writing about the ethics of ambiguity? But the other before already wrote it. Write it again. God, all of you are useless. So yeah, that's my headcanon. And then my son Kant would just be like, Dad, did you lie to Mom that the meatloaf was good? Yes, son, I did. You know that's immoral. Oh, shut the fuck up. So I'm a terrible father. Not that I'm projecting or anything. You're projecting.
This is amazing.
So yeah, I mean, this is why I wanted to name my kids after philosophers, because it goes on for fucking days. But she shut it down, which makes me a sad John. But nobody cares about my tears, so that's okay. I would legitimately name my kids. I know one, and I'm being dead serious about this, and it's kind of personal for me. I would definitely name one of my kids Carmen after my uncle Carmen, because the funny thing is that's my middle name, and I used to hate it. But I learned about him, and he's actually one of the few people in my family that I deeply respect. He was a guy, like, he was married, he was, providing for his family, pretty much living his life, nothing extraordinary. But he came down with type 2 diabetes, lost his eyesight, lost his arms and his legs, and up until the day he died, he still provided for his family. So, like, he fought through the diabetes and everything. Like, he wasn't just going to just die, bedside. And I really admire that strength and that conviction. So if I was to honor anybody in my family, it would either be my sister Christy, but that would be like a daughter's name. But for a boy, like, yeah, definitely my Uncle Carmen, because I never had the privilege of meeting him, but hearing about him, certainly respect him more than most in my family, which if you knew me personally isn't really that hard to do. And really, yeah, I guess I would just leave the other names to the girlfriend, because John can have fun and name the kids after philosophers. But that's cool. That's cool. I'm not dying inside. So yeah, that's my answer to that question.
I don't know, man. I think Descartes would be an amazing name for a kid.
I just really, really love the idea of the arguments I would get, because I would raise them on the stuff unless they didn't want it, unless they gave it a try. I'm like, it's not really for me. But like others, I'd be like, well, this is your namesake, and this is your namesake, and this is your name, and then they'd read it and they'd be like, oh, okay, and then they'd use it against me in arguments, and I'd be like, oh, you little shit. So yeah, it'd just be a great time. But I don't know what the future holds for me, but it's definitely something I've thought more about. So what was Ella's other question? I'd love to get into this.
Question? She had 5. That was only number 1. This is number 2. What's your opinion on pasta?
Oh, I love it. I really, that is probably the biggest Italian stereotype that I fulfill, because my girl, I love it. So yeah, big fan. What about you, bro?
Yeah, I mean, real, actual, genuine, legitimate pasta, I don't really have an opinion on because I don't ever really eat it. I mean, I can do spaghetti on occasion, and the next closest thing to pasta I eat is Hamburger Helper. So, no real opinion on pasta, I'd say.
Hey, man, that's cool. Not everybody's thing. Next question.
Thoughts on Mitt Romney?
Look, he's never going to be president, Ella. Actually, I think she wants John Kerry to be president, so I've got him mixed up. Look, Mitt Romney is an absolute tool. When the revolution comes, he's first. Okay? That's my opinion on Mitt Romney.
Isn't Mitt Romney Mormon?
I think he is.
Oh, okay.
I mean, to me, and I might start a war here, but the only good contribution from the Mormons was that South Park episode and the Book of Mormon musical. That too was amazing.
Which I still want to see.
We actually, here's the thing, bro. I haven't seen it, even a YouTube version of it. What I know of it is my sister Stacy, she got us a soundtrack from the Book of Mormon, and the songs there are great. So that's really my tie with it. But yeah, Mitt Romney, he's an absolute tool. That's what I think of Mitt Romney. Oh, Ella, you and your adorable questions. What about you, Ashton? What are your thoughts on Mitt Romney?
He's a Mormon. That's all you need to know.
Okay, well then I guess we can move on.
Up next, this question is just for me. And Ella wants to know if there's a current wrestler that I get excited for the way you get excited for Mundo, John.
Ooh.
And there really isn't anyone that I can even imagine getting as excited as John with Mundo. But I would say the closest thing probably would be Prince Puma.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome.
So, John, this one's just for you. What are your thoughts on Buddhism?
The funny thing about that, I am an atheist by disposition. I was even talking with a friend about this today. But doing the little bit of work I did this year in Japanese philosophy, I have a whole new respect for Buddhism, particularly the Japanese Zen tradition. I like their whole notion of personal identity. To put it the best way I can, if you think about an ocean, Western society, we individuate each wave. Each wave is, unique and special. But in the Buddhist tradition, it's just all part of the same ocean. There is no kind of individuality. It's just this oneness, this sense of community. I think that's very admirable and beautiful. Buddhism, I'm not going to say that I'm going to be a practitioner anytime soon. I'm perfectly comfortable with my religious dispositions at present. But Buddhism, I got no problem with it. If somebody were to tell me a Buddhist, I'd be like, hey, that's cool. The same way I am with Christians or really anybody else. But I definitely think Buddhism has a lot of my respect. Really a lot of stuff from the Chinese and Japanese tradition. Really that whole Asian tradition on the whole, I definitely have a deep respect for. So yeah, me and Buddhism are cool. Certainly.
All right. So then we had a 5-question stack from Cliff Amal. And it was originally, one of the questions was asking me who I thought the most overrated player in the NFL was. And in one of our commentaries that we were doing, I kind of spoiled that in chat by telling him, oh, by the way, spoiler alert, it's Dak Prescott. And he saw that and he was like, oh, well, way to ruin my day. Now I'm going to ask you a different question instead because I want 5 questions answered in a video, goddammit. So Dak Prescott is the most overrated player in the NFL, but he changed his question. So we still have 5 more questions on top of that to answer. First question, and these are all for both of us now. If you had to pick your 3 favorite TWitWoW moments from 2016, what would they be? I'm going first because this is easy. John's markouts to Johnny Mundo winning the trios, Gift of the Gods, and world titles in Lucha Underground.
I mean, I'm definitely going to be selfish and co-sign onto the world title one because I have just been waiting forever for that. So I have to put that on there. My other two, as long as I'm keeping my years all together, which I hope I am, please tell me. It's funny that I'm asking you, please tell me. Please tell me that Please Don't Do This to Me was this year.
Yeah, it was.
That easily. That was fucking hilarious. I mean, it's probably a bit abnormal that a friendship like ours, I revel so much in your suffering at times, but that was just great to me. Like, oh God, is this happening? And then, really,
Do you remember what that was for?
That wasn't that like when it was teasing Natalia feud. First segment they had together, really letting you know what was happening.
Yeah. It was the night after WrestleMania, and it was when we were getting the tease that we were going to get Charlotte versus Natalia.
And really, like my thing is, and I know this is kind of cheating because it says moments, but really, it's hard to pick a third moment when I have loved specifically every live reactions you and I did this year, particularly for WWE main roster shows, and any NXT review where you and I were just like, fuck it and go off the rails. Because I find that shit to be hilarious. Again, I don't know if it was from this year, but the one NXT TWitWoW where I was just reveling in the idea that Colin Cassidy had his leg shattered, and you were like, "Oh my God!" But you had that laugh, like that nervous laugh, and you're like, "You're a really terrible person," and I'm like, "I know." And you know, anytime that like you interrupt my outro, and then I'm like, "God damn it, Ashton! I'm trying to do it." Like, I just love when you and I just like. And we're like, fuck it, or we're just silly or whatever. So I know that's not a moment and it's kind of cheating, but we had some really silly moments.
Here's another
this
one
year.
for you, John. The death of Mr. Cisco.
Yes. Oh my. In fact, I'm flattered that so many people in chat like really enjoyed my reactions this year because you guys have no idea. Sometimes I'll go back and I'll play that shit back and I'll be a little self-conscious. Like, should I have really gotten that crazy? But then I see how many people loved it and I'm like, nah, it was totally worth it. Oh God, what do they want me for? Murder. That reminds me too of an NXT TWitWoW review when you and I were talking about how Elias Sampson is so great and we were making fun of people that just don't see it. And then you were like, mocking that one person like, oh, you know, but he doesn't even like get a reaction out of me. And then I'm like, well, with how angry you are, it seems like he's getting a reaction out of you right now. Mark. And then just, yeah. That whole Jesse Pinkman shit. So yeah, you and I had so many great moments this year as a team.
The one other moment I want to bring up, Ricky Mandel's pictures.
Yeah, dude, that whole Discord, you and me both, because I thought you were just as funny as fucking that as I was, and we're just like laughing our wow, Dario, like so good, man. So hearing you react to Matanza's debut, hearing you react to anything Prince Puma is a delight. Like, yeah, it was a great year for TWitWoW on the whole, and I apologize for not really answering the question, but it really did make me kind of reminisce on this year and just how fucking good it was. I really, I'm not even just like, oh yeah, we're so great at what we do, which I mean, come on, we are, but just from a pure fun standpoint, like, wow, we really had a fun time this year just reacting to stuff. And it was great. Like AJ winning the title, we're both really happy. Your reaction to John Cena's reaction to AJ kicking out of the Super AA was fucking great at SummerSlam. That was another great moment. Yeah. Like, because I remember you dying. Like, you thought that was hilarious just to look on Cena. It's almost, that was the look he would make if Nikki Bella got pregnant. John, it's positive. Oh God. Oh God, my life is over. You know, it just,
that's when he removes the armband permanently.
Yes. I mean, dude, I loved your reactions to shit. I loved my reaction. I love that you and I, in our own different ways, can be such lovable assholes. And I just love what TWitWoW is about. I love what we do. So yeah.
Damn it, man. This was the best year of TWitWoW ever. Because if you think about it, this year alone, I mean, we have had so much stuff. I mean, the 1,000 sub mark, we started selling T-shirts. You know, the post WrestleMania Raw live reactions were incredible. Lucha Underground seasons 2 and 3 live reactions, because we didn't live react to season 1 except for Ultima Lucha. Yeah, I mean the live TWitWoW going live, and that's like the new format now. Like, and I mean, I said the 1,000 sub video, but we're over 1,200 now. So yeah, it's been an amazing year for TWitWoW, and hopefully it's also been an amazing year for TWitWoW fans, because we hope that we're putting out content that you guys love.
Well, dude, I rarely get like emotional unless we're like doing a celebratory commentary like we did for breaking 1,000 subs. But like hearing all of our fans in chat like mention moments, like they've been mentioning your reaction to really John Cena both times at SummerSlam and No Mercy, your fuck old people comment, which I love that because that caught me so off guard. I'm like, oh my God. Is this Ashton scumbag? Is this the next evolution? So I got really excited. My Mojo Rawley ran, my Zack Ryder ran at Backlash. Your nightmare never ends, bitch. Like, I think what amazes me, and I know this is going to seem like I'm pulling to WWE just jerking us off so much, but like, I think what really astounds me reading the chat and kind of reminiscing is how quotable you and I became this year.
Dude, we have more quotable, funny, hilarious lines than WWE did this year.
Yeah, I don't even think that's a stretch, really. So I just want to take this time to round out this question before we move on to thank all of you guys for enjoying it as much as you did.
This year was the birth of the Scum Squad.
Yeah. Scum Squad 444 life. But yeah, you guys just seeing that. I've always said like you guys make everything possible, and it's moments like this that just really solidify that, because the memories you guys are coming out with that I honestly wouldn't have even recalled here if it was just up to me is just incredible. So thank you guys, really, each and every one of you. That was great. I'm glad that question happened again. I know I kind of cheated on it, but I think it was worth it for just this whole thing. That was great. So if there's anything else you want to say, we can move on.
If you guys thought that was masturbatory, wait till Sunday.
Yeah!
Up next, we had our second question from Cliff Amal. Good Lord, that was only his first question. By the way, guys, we've been going at this for over an hour and a half, still answering questions that were asked in November. So, second question. With us in this quasi-PG era and CZW getting less ultra-violent, is hardcore wrestling dying?
You know what? I'm going to answer it like this. I think hardcore wrestling is dying, but not necessarily storylines that like necessitate hardcore settings. Like, and that's how I prefer my hardcore wrestling. Hardcore matches for the sake of being violent, I do have to agree with other people that I think it's garbage. But when you get like my template for really good hardcore wrestling really would be Cactus Jack Randy Orton from 2004, because I thought that story was so personal and Orton had crossed so many lines. Like, he needed to pay with his blood and his flesh and everything, and Foley damn sure made you believe it when, you know, when I still really respected him and loved him. God, what happened to you, Mick? But yeah, you know, that's what I think good hardcore wrestling is. So is it dying? Yeah, I know. Do I think it's dying? Yes, but I think it's all for the better, because I think when we get hardcore matches now in the future, like maybe in 10 years time or however long it takes for it to fully die out, it'll be matches with a purpose that we can all appreciate, even if it does come accompanied with gratuitous violence. So what do you think, Ashton?
The question is hardcore wrestling dying? And to that I say the answer is no. Hardcore wrestling is evolving.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, brother.
We're losing the let's just have these guys go out there and stab each other with needles and break light tubes over each other's heads because that's entertaining. We're losing that. But what we're gaining is storylines and angles and characters, reason to want to have ultra violent matches. And that's when it's called for, and that's when it's good. And I think that Tejano versus Cage, even though it wasn't ultra violent with like the light tubes and shit, I think that that was kind of along the lines of a hardcore match, because you had them going to the outside, you had chair shots, you had a kendo stick involved, you had them falling off of freaking barricades. And yeah, it was a hardcore match. But yeah, like Cliff Amal said, it really is a lot because of Lucha Underground, because when you have Lucha Underground setting these examples, other companies are going to pick up on it and learn from it, and especially a company like TNA, who's gonna at the point where they're gonna try anything to stay alive. They're probably gonna start using more hardcore matches too. Um, whether they do it right or not, I don't know. But Lucha Underground is a small company from the perspective of viewership, but it's having some pretty major waves in the wrestling business, even though it's only been around for a little over 2 years now. You can tell. I mean, I legitimately do not think that the final deletion would exist if it wasn't for Lucha Underground. And that's not to say that Matt Hardy stole from Lucha Underground, because I don't necessarily believe that. But what that does say is that Lucha Underground proved that that version of pro wrestling can work.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I really can't add anything more to your answer. I think you articulated that beautifully. So let's move on.
Third question from Cliff Mall. What's a match that you like that everyone else hates, and a match you hate that everyone else loves?
This is kind of
I'll go first on this if you want.
Yeah, this is kind of a prickly question for me to answer because hate. I want to do something more historical this way. I don't commit recency bias because I know we got the awards coming up. This Sunday.
Go first.
Beg pardon?
Do you want me to go first? I can go first.
Yeah, that's fine. You could go first.
Okay. So the match that I like that everyone else hates. That's a lot harder than the match that you hate that everyone else loves, because the match that I hate that everyone else loves actually probably would be the one that you were just talking about, John, Orton versus Cactus Jack.
Really? Interesting.
I just didn't like it. I wasn't into it. I think that I wasn't super into the Cactus Jack character at that point, and Orton. That was a point where I hated Orton so much that I didn't just want to see him lose. I just didn't want to see him. I just hated his face.
Okay. Yeah.
Didn't want to see him exist at all. So yeah, that would probably be the one that I don't even know if I can say I hated it. I just didn't like it as much as everyone else seemed to like it. So, but as far as a match that I like that everyone else hates, though, man, that's not easy. I feel like you're like expecting one of us to be like, oh, you know what match was really good that gets way too much hate? Is Charmel versus Jenna Moroska. But that's not going to happen. Right. So really, I feel like any match that is legitimately hated, it's probably for pretty good reason. So I don't really have an answer to that.
Here's my thing. I am going to answer the one match that I love that everyone else hates, and that would be Kane versus Triple H from No Mercy 2002. I know why people hate it, and I get it completely because that was the whole Katie Vick storyline. From a narrative standpoint, yes, garbage. In ring standpoint, though, those two guys went out and they had a hell of a match. I mean, then that was when I was really not just the closest to being a Kane mark. I would say that his 2002, early 2003 run as a babyface, I was a Kane mark. I was loving everything the guy was doing. He was so fucking dominant and had some badass segments. So yeah, I'd say I love that match, but I think everybody hates it because of the surrounding circumstances of that match. The match that I hate that everyone else loves, that's a bit more difficult for me. Because, I mean, I could already, think of a few things from, like, even this year. But, again, we're doing the awards on Sunday, so I'd like to go a little bit further back.
Here's a controversial one. Here's a match that I don't necessarily hate, but a match that I didn't like that everyone else loved. Bayley versus Asuka at TakeOver Dallas.
Yeah, I didn't really care for that much either, to be honest. I can agree with you there. Honestly, you know what? I think I'll say the first Triple H take. Well, not the first, because that would be WrestleMania 17. Their second WrestleMania match, technically. You know how WWE likes us to forget history before end of an era. Because I remember people being like, "Oh, that was a great outing for Taker." I was like, you could tell they're just using the no holds barred rules just to really compensate for really both competitors' ages and everything. And I'm just like, I was really kind of looking for Undertaker to have more dramatic stories at that point or whatever. And yeah, so I'm gonna go with that match. I think everybody really liked that match, and I was kind of mad on it. That was pretty much my Cactus Jack Orton, really. So that'll be my answer.
And you know what? I have a match that I love that a lot of people hate, and you know what? I'm okay with it. I freaking loved Hogan Warrior at WrestleMania 8 or 9. I forget which one it was. Might have even been 6.
Oh yeah, I
But
think it
that
was
match,
6. Yeah.
yeah, the match that was Intercontinental title versus World title that Warrior won. I loved that match. That match was awesome. And if anybody would watch it these days, they'd probably think it was boring as hell. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. So that's probably my best answer to the question: what match do you love that everyone else hates?
There you go, brother. Not much more you can add than that.
All right, then we have our fourth question from Cliff Amal. What's your favorite wrestling video game, either from childhood or right now? His are SmackDown versus Raw 06 and Bring the Pain.
You know, I know it really doesn't get talked about a lot, but I would say SmackDown versus Raw 07, because that was still a time when you could do a story mode and pick any character you wanted to do that story mode. I miss those days, man. I wish the more contemporary games would go back to that, because I got 2K16 recently. It plays all right on my computer. I'm still gonna need to upgrade my computer to get the full experience, but for now I can do like one-on-one matches and other stuff, and that's not a bad game. But yeah, 2007 plus on a sentimental level, that was the last game that Benoit was in. So kind of has a sentimental place there too. But yeah, I agree with Cliff though about Here Comes the Pain. That game is excellent as well. I love that because you had Scott Steiner, Brock Lesnar, Goldberg. You had a stacked roster back then. So yeah, Here Comes the Pain was definitely great too. What about you?
The last wrestling game that I played was in like 1999, and it was NWO versus WCW World Tour. So that's my answer.
You know what? I've played that game on emulator. I think WCW versus NWO Revenge is better, but World Tour isn't bad. I actually, yeah, kind of.
John, you just have to shit on the one game that I've actually played that's a wrestling game, don't you?
I'm sorry, okay? Maybe you shouldn't be so dated and you should actually keep your finger on the pulse.
Mr. Wrestling Game Savant over here. Oh, yes. The one game that you've ever played that was a wrestling game. Yeah, I've played that too, and its sequel was better, so suck it.
Well, why don't you write in your diary about it? God.
I don't even have a diary, you mark.
See, now I know I struck a nerve. Yeah, that's keep it classy, bro. Keep it classy. But let's move on to our next question.
Question 5 from Cliff Amal. Your thoughts on the broken Matt Hardy phenomenon?
Here's my thing.
You want me to take this? Okay, you get this.
I'll take this first because you answered, like, you articulated really well about the broken Matt Hardy stuff earlier. In fact, you've talked about broken Matt Hardy twice now. I haven't really talked about him yet. Well, you mentioned, like, because the whole LU verse, like, how would you incorporate him? And then you kind of mentioned him earlier about, like, right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Here's my thing. If people like it, great. I tried watching. I don't think it was the final deletion, because I think that was the latest thing that they did. The one before that, where it was him and Jeff Hardy, like this final encounter, I couldn't even get through the first 3 minutes of that. And I get the appeal, right? Like, it's so over the top and so absurd and so campy. It almost kind of does that whole it's so bad it's good thing going for it. But that really just wasn't for me. And again, like, I'm not saying anybody ripped off Lucha Underground, but it really... that's not what disappoints me. I think what disappoints me is that people are like globbing this up when Lucha Underground's out there doing stuff that I think has its own camp, but it's far more respectable and, dare I say, even grounded in some respects, and doesn't get nearly as much recognition. Like, everybody's been talking about Broken Matt Hardy. I would love that kind of conversation to be about LU. So I think that's really where I'm coming from with it. Nothing against Matt Hardy personally. And hey, to Matt Hardy personally, kudos to him. I had been hearing for years, oh, Jeff is the better, pro wrestler, which I still think is true when you look at the whole body of work cumulatively. But I'm happy that the guy finally struck gold with something and that he's the topic of conversation for once. I thought he was insanely talented when he was on SmackDown. I was hoping he'd do a lot more when he was in WWE. But to see him kind of get this second wind for the person, good for him. When we look at the wrestling industry as a whole, if you like it, great. But I really wish again LU got that kind of buzz, because I feel like they were really kind of the real revolutionaries of all this style of presentation and pro wrestling and everything. So that's my thought really about Broken Matt Hardy.
There is a combination of emotions for me when it comes to this whole Broken Matt Hardy thing, and there's a degree of anger at sort of what you described, at the fact that people are giving all this credit to Matt Hardy and TNA for doing this big like revolutionary thing when it's something Lucha Underground has been doing for like 26 months now, you know. Um, so there's some anger to it. There's also sort of a level of excitement there because it's like, okay, Lucha Underground's been doing this for a long time, but TNA has more than triple the audience of Lucha Underground. And the fact that they did it and people loved it for the most part tells me that Lucha Underground is absolutely on the right track. This is the next step in the evolution process of professional wrestling. And in 5 to 10 years, if you aren't doing what Lucha Underground has been doing, you're going to be obsolete. And I know obsolete is like a trigger word for Matt Hardy fans now, but what I'm saying is you're going to be behind the eight ball. You're going to be behind the curve. You're going to be, yeah, that's you're obsolete really is the best word for this situation. So that's exciting, but then at the same time, there's almost a degree of jealousy there where Lucha Underground has been doing this and they've been amazing and they've been killing it for 2+ years now. And yet it's one of those things where Matt Hardy has a bigger stage and he does something that's kind of similar to Lucha Underground, only way campier and way more kind of like you said, so bad it's good. And he gets all this credit for it, and it's like, where the hell is this with like? It sucks because like even just this freaking year, just over the last couple days, Reddit has these Reddit awards. I think they're called the Marquies, and they there is a nomination process, and then once the nominations are in, there's a voting process, and the nomination process just ended, voting just began, and I went through, and Lucha Underground is almost completely absent from the final nominations, and it's ridiculous because Lucha Underground is legitimately the best, most entertaining, most innovative any kind of anything involving pro wrestling of the last decade and a half, I would say. And
Yeah.
yet they're just not getting recognition for it. And I can't even yell and be angry and be like, oh, screw you guys, you're not giving Lucha Underground enough credit, because at the end of the day, it doesn't have the exposure. It has, on average, it averages less than 200,000 viewers a week. The Reddit threads are constantly disrespected. There are so many instances where Thursday will roll around and the NXT thread will still be stickied on Reddit, and they'll have some other random thread stickied like an AMA or something like that, and Lucha Underground is the one that gets the shaft, the Lucha Underground
Right.
thread. And it's so frustrating, and I just wish that Lucha Underground would get any recognition that isn't Jim Cornette obnoxiously talking about shit he has no clue about, or Dave Meltzer shitting on it because, oh, there's bad locker room morale because the season 4 debut got pushed back a few months. Like, fuck off, Meltzer. We don't need to hear this shit. Seriously, go fuck yourself. I despise Dave Meltzer now. Like, I used to just kind of feel kind of just like a vague dislike for Dave Meltzer, for the fact that like he got all this credit just because he's been doing something longer than anyone else, not because he's better than everyone else, just because he's been doing it for longer than everyone else. And that rubs me in the wrong way immediately. But then he started like spoiling Lucha Underground for literally no reason whatsoever. And the thing is, he doesn't even seem to like the show, but he still talks about it on his show, and every time he does, it's negative, and he spoils it ahead of time. So if like, who exactly in the Dave Meltzer fandom in the Dave Meltzer fan club, the people that give him their money to listen to him talk, who in that crowd wants or cares to know what's going on in Lucha Underground? If you're a fan of Lucha Underground, you don't want to be spoiled. And if you're
Right.
not a fan of Lucha Underground, you don't care about spoilers. So Meltzer is literally just spoiling the show for his own like fun, I guess. I don't know. Like it makes literally no sense to me. And because of shit stains like Meltzer, the finish to Ultima Lucha Trace gets spoiled for us.
Yeah.
And it's horrible. It's there's not it's not like, there's people going around spoiling how the end of Mr. Robot season 3 is going to happen when that rolls around. So why should you be allowed to spend? There are people that go to the temple that have to sign non-disclosure agreements just to get in, and they violate those. And those people should be held legally accountable for leaking results. It's unbelievable to me that Lucha Underground doesn't pursue any kind of legal action against people who post spoilers and spoil the results of Lucha Underground matches, because by getting people to sign those NDAs, they are legally capable of pursuing those lawsuits, and they don't, because I guess they're too nice for their own good. But yeah, to me, like if Lucha Underground would take it into their own hands to sue somebody and they won that lawsuit, that would send a message to everyone else thinking about spoiling Lucha Underground episodes. If you fuck with us, we will destroy you.
Yeah.
Don't spoil our show or you will face consequences. Like it can't just keep happening without consequences. And the thing is, it even happens on like Wikipedia. Like you can't look up Lucha Underground talents Wikipedia pages, because if they do anything substantial of note in Lucha Underground, it gets spoiled on Wikipedia
I
because
hate
of
that
people
too.
like Dave
Yeah.
Meltzer. It's
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. So yeah, that's where the jealousy comes from. Is why is Lucha Underground not recognized as the innovators that they are by anyone other than the small group of Lucha Underground fans that are already established?
Yeah. And dude, like your whole rant to me was a thing of beauty. You know, I got pissed a few days ago because I had something spoiled for me and I wanted to make sure nobody else got it spoiled for them. Like Lucha Underground really is. It's like an experience, and I want more people. And hey, if you don't like it, it's not for everybody. I get that. I just don't like. It's like with any other facet. If an artist was to do a work that somebody already did, you know, it would suck that they would get all the credit. It's the same way here. I'm not saying anything malicious was done here. I'm just saying it sucks that, you know, Matt Hardy is getting all this credit and everything when there was already, you know, an entity, that being Lucha Underground, already doing this stuff. And the only positive, because we're all about those silver linings, is what you noted. Like if Matt Hardy can do it with such a large base watching him, and they like it, that normalizes that style of presentation for professional wrestling.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So that's going to be the final thing I say about it. Unless there's anything else you want to say, we can move on.
Nope, I don't have anything to add. My whole thing with Matt Hardy is final deletion, while not necessarily in the exact form that it ended up taking. I think that something like that was probably an idea that he had for a really long time. And Lucha Underground's success was what led to TNA giving him the green light to be able to do it.
Right.
So that's my opinion on the whole situation. Up next, we had 5 questions from Brandon Best. First question: if you guys were pitched an idea to write the Lucha Underground equivalent of Camp WWE, how would you do that?
Oh God, I'm not talented enough for this shit. Okay, well, Johnny Mundo would be the athlete of the camp, and all the women would be fawning over him and his obliques, because I mean, even I'd be fawning over him and his obliques. But again, this isn't about me. Let's see,
For it
Pentagon.
not being about you, you sure do have a tendency to make it about you when it comes to
You
Johnny
know,
Mundo.
your face also has tendencies, but I don't really remember bringing them out in the open, so suck it. Pentagon, because of his face paint, I'd probably make him director of arts and crafts or something. And every time that somebody's painting sucked, or anytime they made something that sucked, he would break their arm. What else could I do? Vampiro would be a camp counselor. That just sounds hilarious.
Oh my god.
Prince Puma would kind of just, I don't know, be like a cabin leader in one of his cabins. Maybe he'd get into beef with Mil Muertes. Maybe Mil Muertes would kind of have his own little death tribe, like you've been saying. But of course, we'd caricaturize them. So yeah, I mean, those are just some really rudimentary ideas. What about you? You're the creative guy between the two of us. What have you got?
I feel like Lucha Underground already is like a cartoon show. Like, I feel like when you take something that's, in wrestling and you turn it into a cartoon, you kind of turn the volume up on all the characters, but like what volume is there to go up with
Yeah.
Lucha Underground? Like they already have everything turned up to 11. Like you can't, I guess you could do like cuz like I was thinking like, how oh man, I don't even know. Cuz like you have sort of like the team up kind of shows like Power Rangers where they have the five different characters or however many, and then like Captain Planet where they have all the different elements or like that kind of thing. Maybe you could do that, but like with the tribes, like Power of the Jaguar, Power of the Eagle, that kind of thing. You could kind of play with that a little bit, and that could be interesting.
Yeah, I could agree with you there. Yeah, there'd be some potential there. I agree with your overall sentiments, though. Like, it is kind of hard to do, given that Lucha Underground already owns what it is.
Yeah,
So,
like Lucha,
yeah,
like, oh, hey guys, take this intellectual property that is extremely over the top and fantastical and turn it into a cartoon. Like, you're basically just asking me to animate Lucha Underground because that's what it would be.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I really do have to agree with your sentiments there, and there's really not much more I can say about it. So, we'll move on to his other question, I guess, because I'm tapped out as far as that goes.
Would you rather take a pile driver or watch Holy Foley?
Pile driver, the nerve damage is far more pleasurable to me than whatever Holy Foley would do to me. So, pile driver.
And I value my brain health, so I'll take Holy Foley.
Well, I think you're kind of compromising it either way, but whatevs. Next question.
I'd rather compromise my mental faculties than my physical brain.
I guess that's fair.
This is specifically for me. Brandon wants to know what my opinion is on Reggie Bush. When Reggie Bush was coming out of USC, I thought that it was ridiculous that he was talked about as a top 3 to 5 pick. I thought he was extremely overrated because of being fast. I thought that a below average in between the tackles runner. I thought that he almost would have been better off trying to make a position change to wide receiver because he had pretty good hands and, like I already said, he was fast. So he probably could have been a decent receiver. And then as far as his NFL career goes, he about lived up to what I expected. He was never really that good of an actual running back. He was always more of a third down back. He was a good receiver out of the backfield. He had good, a few breakaway running touchdowns and stuff. But for the most part, it was a very underwhelming career, and it's safe to say he was a huge bust for the Saints, considering they drafted him at 2 overall, I believe, and he never really did anything of note for them. I feel like Reggie Bush he didn't feel like he had his best years outside of New Orleans. I could be wrong there, but yeah, I was really, Reggie Bush is one of those players that I kind of nailed my analysis of. I thought he would be overdrafted, and he was, and then he didn't really do much in the NFL. So Reggie Bush overrated, but in hindsight, he was also kind of ahead of the curve because there are players now that are kind of those really fast good receiving backs out of the backfield that are actually way more valuable in today's game because of how pass heavy it is these days. So really, Reggie Bush was kind of ahead of his time, and that actually kind of hurt his career a little bit. Like if he would have, I mean, if he would have been drafted at 2 overall today, he'd probably be like a David Johnson type, where he kind of finishes a season with like 100 receptions and like close to 2,000 scrimmage yards or something like that, because teams would know how to use him better today. So yeah, kind of a tragically overrated player who could have been better if he would have just been born like 5 to 10 years later. So there you go. Next question is just for you, John.
Okay.
Are there any interesting activities to do in New Hampshire?
The only two interesting activities where I live, Brandon, brother, is hiking. And believe me, when the weather breaks, I can't wait to go hiking again. My personal record is 13.5 miles. It's also the day I almost died, so it has a sentimental value on all fronts. And the other interesting activity to do is trying to survive the winters so that you don't die there too. So, which I'm currently doing right now. I've got the space heater on while we're doing this. So, yeah, really in my neck of the woods.
John, I will add though, I feel like it would be a lot easier to survive the winter if you had, like actual heat from the house and not from space heaters.
Probably, but I will say this though, these space heaters do the trick. Like, I'm not even freezing right now. I'm not cold. It's something I've got. We, run really every day. But to get back to the question, it's funny because I do have, or at least I used to have, a New Hampshire directory on my computer, just in case like friends and family would visit and what we could do. But the thing is, where we're like 10 minutes away from the town equivalent of Hamilton, where I used to live back in Jersey. But if you really want to get in like the big city area and like Keene and Manchester, it's a 40-minute drive. So we're pretty disconnected. I love it that way, given my misanthropic tendencies. The less people I have to deal with, the better. Hiking is really the big activity I do. I love hiking. I really can't wait to get back to and build my endurance back up. In the meantime, I've just been working out this bod, getting it ready for hike season. And yeah, that's the big activity there.
Okay. Well, there you go, Brandon. Up next was our fifth question from Brandon Best. What's your favorite suplex variation? And I guess I'll take this one since you just answered a question. My favorite suplex variation is probably the inverted vertical suplex, because I think that you can really play with it to kind of make it more like a cutter than a suplex, and a cutter is an amazing move. So my favorite suplex variation, inverted vertical suplex.
For me, since we're talking suplex variation, which leads like a wide array, especially for a technical wrestling kind of connoisseur like myself, I would have to say either the German suplex, because it was the first suplex I ever really fell in love with because of obvious reasons. But really, if we were to get more specific, I love Regalplex. It's a beautiful freaking bridging suplex that's even to this day gets a good pop out of me when I see it, either like on a rewatch or more wrestlers use it. So yeah, I'd say either the Germans or the Regalplex are my favorites.
Okay. Up next, we had a stack of 5 questions from Mark Schoeneman. We're finally into the December questions now. First question from Mark Schoeneman for both of us. What are 5 unpopular opinions you have? And then he specified that they don't need to be wrestling related, but they can be. So who wants to go first for this, John?
I'll go first for this because I've really been chewing on this question a lot, brother. Because I found it very interesting. I want to thank Mark for these questions. The first one, which would be wrestling, is that we think Elias Sampson is a great heel and a great performer. I know that's an unpopular opinion for a fact. Thankfully, Baron Corbin isn't anymore, but Elias Sampson still is and probably will be.
And hey, Corbin was for the longest time, and people are only just now starting to come around on him. And the funniest thing to me about that, and this kind of happened with Sasha Banks too, is that when a heel starts to get popular and people start to realize, like, oh my God, this person's actually really good at what they do, have put forward this narrative that, oh, they've improved so much, when in reality they've been this good all along and you just took this long to realize it, you marks.
He said it. He said the thing. But yeah, definitely. Oh, I was even going to ask you earlier. So Ashton, you would say that Reggie Bush hype is a product of Mark's. You know, I freaking love it. I can't get enough of it. So yeah, definitely Elias Sampson. On a non-wrestling front, I'm going to be honest. I would say my atheism is probably an unpopular opinion, because even though we are still kind of in an age of secularization, it's still a very heavily theistic country and theistic parts of the world. So I'd still say atheism is a very vocal and passionate, in my mind, justified minority, but still a minority. So I think that counts. Three, on a more personal level, my love of philosophy. I definitely know my love really of the humanities and the arts on that level. I think that's kind of a minority thing if the direction of colleges is anything to say about it, because programs are getting gutted left and right, which just makes my heart weep. But what can you do? Fourth unpopular opinion. I don't really know if being a Panic at the Disco fan's an unpopular opinion, because I know they have a shit ton of fans. It's just, I know, like, I guess in my personal group, there aren't many. But yeah, I love those guys. So I guess some musical tastes I have would be an unpopular opinion. Just really wouldn't know what to pin it down as. And as far as a fifth unpopular opinion goes, well, honestly, my fifth unpopular opinion would be one that I echoed years back. I would not feel bad at all if if Benoit got inducted in the Hall of Fame. I even did. That was like the last really like passionate video I did on vocal aggression. Because I mean, given what Ashton revealed to me about Fabulous Moolah and what Carlos Colon did, and like everybody has skeletons in their closet, and yeah, it was really, really bad. So I understand if he never does, but like I would not bat an eye about it. I'd be happy if he got inducted. So that'd probably be my last really unpopular opinion. What about you, Ashton? I'm curious what your answer to this question would be.
Okay, well, you kind of opened up with two unpopular opinions that applied to both of us, the Elias Sampson thing and the atheism. So I'm going to kind of steal those two, and those will be my first two, and then I'll just come up with three that are unique to me that I don't, share with you. My first unpopular opinion, let's see. This is actually really difficult for me because I'm not good at keeping my finger on the pulse and knowing what popular opinions are. So if I don't know what popular opinions are, it's hard for me to know what an unpopular opinion would be for me. So I would say, just man, this is a tough one. Oh, I had one. Oh, here's a good one, and this is one that I know even you disagree with. I think that physical violence should never be necessary ever.
Oh, right, yeah.
Completely and totally against physical violence. I think that any problem that could potentially be solved with physical violence could also be solved without physical violence, even if it would take a longer amount of time to do without the physical violence. Because my opinion of that is that physical violence just about always be the quickest and easiest way to get something done. But in my opinion, it's never the right way to get something done. So that's one. I feel like that shouldn't really be an unpopular opinion, but apparently it is. Um, another one that I think is an unpopular opinion is I think that all people, not just people in the U.S., but all people in the world are not born good or bad. I think all people are born neutral and learn to be what the rest of the world perceives as good or bad based on their kind of growing up and the way that they're raised and all of that. And I think that most people, if not all people, never really see themselves as a bad person, unless it's like some like fucked up religious thing where like, oh, I'm such a bad person, I'm a sinner, I'm going to hell, kind of like that. But I feel like everyone is kind of the hero of their own story in a sense, even if what they're doing in the eyes of other people is horrific. So there's
Right.
one. Say that another unpopular opinion of mine, and we've been getting kind of heavy for the last two, so I'll make this one a little bit more lighthearted. I think the Titanic is a shitty movie.
What's a shitty movie? You cut out there.
Titanic.
Yeah, I didn't care for that either, bro. I definitely agree with you there.
So, those are my five. Up next, Mark Schoeneman asks me specifically, if you were tasked with creating an NFL team using only wrestlers, who would be on it? Well, first of all, if I had to make an NFL team and only use wrestlers, we would be the worst team in the league by far, because the NFL is comprised of elite athletes who've been playing football for pretty much their entire lives, and they're the best in the world at their jobs in football. So asking me to just pick a bunch of guys from a completely different profession that has a completely different set of athletic and physical requirements to play in the NFL, yeah, we'd be screwed. We'd go 0-16 hard. But if I wanted to pick the team with the best shot, I'd probably just pick all former football players. I'd probably get Brock to play. I would want Baron Corbin. I would want Goldberg. Anybody that's a former football player, I would have them on my list for who I would want to be on the team, if for no other reason, because they actually have experience and they can help play. As far as let's put a team together. My quarterback, it's got to be someone that's really smart, someone that makes good decisions, somebody that has a strong arm. I kind of feel like the best quarterback option, and really too, the quarterback can actually be an asset if they are fast and can run as well. So I think good decision maker. My quarterback is going to be Xavier Woods, and I'm okay with him being short because it's been proven that short quarterbacks can work in the NFL. So Xavier Woods, and he's not super short. I think he's like 5'10", maybe 5'9". I don't know. So Xavier Woods would be my quarterback. Let's see, running back would probably running back. Who do I want, John? Do I want a big, powerful thumper running back, or do I want a shiftier, quick running back? You tell me.
I would say shiftier and quick, bro, for my money, but that's just me.
Right, my running back is going to be, since this is not exclusively WWE, this is kind of across the board, any wrestlers. My running back is going to be El Dragon Azteca Jr., because he's the most elusive wrestler I know of. So there's your running back. My fullback, we're going to play two-way football here because there's no freaking way I'm drafting an entire 22-man starting roster. My fullback and my middle linebacker are both going to be Jeff Cobb, aka Matanza. That's an easy one. My center is going to be Big E because he is big and giant and strong and surprisingly smart for someone his size. You normally see someone that's big and jacked and you think, oh, that guy must be a moron. But no, Big E is actually a really smart dude. And I think that you need to be smart to play center. My guards would be Mark Henry and Cage. And those guys would also be my defensive tackles. Mark Henry would be my nose tackle. Cage would be my 3 technique. My tackles would be Baron Corbin because he actually has experience playing tackle. And The Undertaker on the other end for the intimidation factor. Corbin would be my left tackle. And I would use Undertaker as my right tackle. My tight end would be Kane, just because he's big and tall and could probably catch, and he's smart, and tight end is another position you need a really smart guy to play because they have to be on the same page as the quarterback. My wide receivers would be Ricochet. That's an easy one. Ricochet. Will Ospreay would be another wide receiver. And who's going to be my slot? Let's say Neville will be my slot receiver. I'm also going to use Neville as my free safety. So I think I'm going to end there because I'm sure the people that have no clue what the hell I'm talking about are about tired of hearing me talk about it. So, and even though Mojo's a former football player, he's still not on my team because I don't want to have to deal with his shit. So let's move on. Up next, our third question from Mark Schoeneman. Do either of you play strategy board games such as Settlers of Catan or deck building games like Ascension? Easy answer for me. The answer is no, I don't.
No, I don't as well. That's going to be a no for me, so we can move on.
All right. So then we had our fourth question from Mark Schoeneman. What are some of the best and worst crowd chants that you've ever heard?
For best, I have got to go because this is one PWG chant. I don't know why when I first heard it, I loved it. It's for Chris Hero. Chris Hero, ain't no one to fuck with. Like, I love the rhythm they get with it and everything. I think it's a great chant for him. The Bailey, Will You Be My Girl? That's another one that I'm fond of. And also, when it's appropriate, and see, now I'm starting to kind of sour on this chant. It used to be really cool, and I thought it was amazing the first time I heard it for Brian. But the You Deserve It chants, I think, are starting to get just a little bit overplayed, which is sad because, again, I really did like the concept. But, of course, you just got to beat the dead horse. Worst crowd chants. No disrespect to Cliff, but I hate when people randomly chant Randy Savage when something's boring. I'm like, whatever. Same thing with like Michael Cole or JBL. Like any chants like that. CM Punk chants have really gotten on my nerves like the last year or two. I'm just kind of over it. So yeah, those would be like my worst crowd chants. What about you, Ashton? Any that you want to put out there?
Yeah, I mean, people are already saying it in chat, and I would have said it whether they said it or not. But what chants are the worst? I love Stone Cold Steve Austin, but if him never existing would have also meant what chance never existing, that might be a worthy trade-off. I don't know.
I can totally sympathize with that, man. I think you want to talk about overplayed. I mean, what chants have been that for years now? It's really time that we moved on to something.
I don't know if this would count as a chant, but I hate with every fiber in my being. I despise when the crowd woos every time someone does a chop.
That's never really gotten under my skin, surprisingly enough, unlike the what chants.
Do you know what made me notice it is when we watch a lot of G1 Climax, because they don't do that for the New Japan wrestlers.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
So
that's a good point.
Another one that's really gotten on my nerves lately is This Is Awesome. This Is Awesome chants it's gotten to the point now that they're warranted maybe 10% of the time they're actually used. It's gotten really bad.
That's another. It's kind of in the same category for me as the "You Deserve It" chants. Like, and really, here's my thing: if a crowd genuinely believes that a match that they're watching is awesome, great. What I don't like is when it happens like within the first few minutes of a match, or guys haven't even touched or whatever. Then I'm like, well, you don't really know because it hasn't happened yet. But it's whatever. It's in the same league for me as the "You Deserve It" chant.
That said, though, John, I think the worst chants I've ever heard. I don't know if it was, I think it was last year after WrestleMania 31. There was a big match involving Natalya and the Bella Twins and I think Naomi. And it was like a big multiple woman match. And the crowd was actually chanting like, "You suck John, you suck John," and like, "You suck Tyson." Like literally telling the women who they're with and telling them that they suck their dick. That was the worst chant I've ever heard. "You suck Brian" was another one. Yeah. Like that was disgusting. That I don't think I've ever been angrier at a crowd than that.
I honestly, bro, I'm so glad you brought that up because I don't even remember that. But that really that's heinous. Like how you could even behave that way. See, I would be ashamed to be a part of that crowd. That's horrible.
Yeah, that was the worst. My favorite chant though of all time. "Let's go, Chuck Taylor. You're the best wrestler in the world. You're in way better shape than Tyler Black."
I love Chucky T, man. It really disappoints me that he'll probably never get his shot in WWE because I'd love him there. Oh man, but he's doing just fine in PWG.
You know what? Another chant that I've really grown fond of that I only ever hear in PWG is "You sick fuck" chants.
Yes, I love that too.
Yeah,
so good.
Yeah, so those are the two big ones, and of course they're both from PWG because let's be real. Even though they're the smarkiest of smarks, PWG crowds are the best.
Yeah, I love those guys. I can't hate on PWG crowds.
So, fifth and final question from Mark Shoneman. What will come first, Cena's 16th world title or Charlotte's 16th women's title? And I'll take this one first because this is the easiest question I think we've gotten, because Cena is winning his 16th world title in 4 weeks. And I already said I don't think Charlotte is ever winning 16 women's titles. So the obvious answer is Cena for me.
The obvious answer is Cena for me too, but here's the thing where you and I disagree is it may not come in 4 weeks, but it'll come definitely in early 2017, like in the first 3 months of the new year. So yeah, definitely John Cena's 16th world title reign.
Yeah. So that was it for Mark Soderman. Let's move on to Ben Jr., now, for whatever reason, known as the mastermind in chat. First question: who do you think should turn heel in the Bray Orton feud? He also
Uh,
added that he would love a Bray face turn.
I would love a Bray face turn too, so I would have Orton go heel in that one. Yeah, Orton loves working heel anyway, so I might as well go with what the guy loves. And with Bray being face, I mean, I couldn't even really say they scratched the surface of that because they only had that one appearance and the crowd was so into it. So it's still like a vastly unexplored terrain. I would definitely say a Bray Wyatt face turn for me, definitely.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm on the exact same page as you. That would be pretty amazing. A face Wyatt versus a heel Orton would just be beautiful. And you could even remove Luke Harper from the situation entirely. Or if you want to get really creative, which is exactly how we know WWE won't do it, they could put Harper with Orton and have them be a heel faction.
Yeah, oh, dude, that'd be interesting as hell. Yeah,
And that would
oh
be a
man.
really good way to get Bray over as a face too, because the 2-on-1 beatdowns would be believable.
Definitely. Certainly. Yeah, I'm all into that. Definitely.
So okay, second question from Ben Jr. What's your favorite meal?
Ooh. Really like any more, like any kind of rice dish. I love rice. I recently actually got done eating because there was like so much of it thanks to our neighbor across the way. Like these spicy beans, but you put them on like a bed of rice that my sister made. Oh my god, it was fantastic. So yeah, rice I think definitely has become my favorite meal just because I eat it so often. And even when we get like Chinese, I'll usually get like beef fried rice more often than not. So yeah, I'm definitely a big time rice guy. So I'm gonna have to say that.
Nice. So you have the palate of basically, a tiny Japanese man. And meanwhile, I have the palate of an overweight 12-year-old because my answer is something along the lines of hot wings and french fries at Red Robin.
Hey man, that sounds like good shit to me. I've never been to a Red Robin. I've got to change that.
I'll tell you what. Here's my thing with Red Robin. I've been eating hot wings for probably 15 years now, and I don't think I've ever had better hot wing. And it's not an every time thing either. I don't, Red Red Robin has really good hot wings every time, but there was one time that I went into Red Robin and their wings were absolutely freaking pristine to the point that I could literally freaking with my fingers I could pull the meat off of the bone in one piece, like all the meat off the bone in one piece and just drop it in my mouth. And
That
it
sounds
was
amazing.
incredible.
That sounds
It
amazing. That
was.
sounds
It
like a
was
cosmic
freaking
experience,
amazing.
man. Yeah.
It was the best wings I've ever had. And I've been back to Red Robin I think 2 or 3 times since then, and they're always good, but they've never been on that level since I went that one time.
Wow. That's
So,
crazy, man.
yeah. But also, I love me some wings, but if I had to pick a favorite meal as far as like what the dream meal would be, steak. I am such a huge fan of a good New York strip steak. And I know that the steak savants in chat are going to crucify me for this, but I love me a good medium well steak. I know people hate cooking steak past medium rare, but I like for my steak to be crispy on the outside and just have a tiny sliver of pink in the middle. And it's when it's nice and juicy, Texas Roadhouse, just amazing. So those are my two sort of favorite meals. Third question from Ben Jr. John Cena versus CM Punk from Money in the Bank 2011, or The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels from WrestleMania 25. I'll take this one first. Cena Punk Money in the Bank.
I have to agree with you. It was a tough call for me when I originally saw this question, but I have to go Cena Punk simply because the story behind that, we were all hooked, and I think that was in large part thanks to Punk. I think that match had a better atmosphere than any match really in recent memory for me. And especially the idea that it kind of culminated at the time in Chicago. I mean, it was perfection, really. So definitely CM Punk. I agree.
All right, so that was a pretty easy one. Next one you can answer first. If Roman turns heel, will fans boo or cheer him?
Okay, you know the Smarks will cheer him, of which, you know, I'm definitely one of them, because they'll be like, oh, that promo was so good, but I should be angry, so I'm part of the problem. But I think casual people would definitely boo, and hopefully that would be like a raucous portion of the crowd. Hopefully children would cry, not just because the idea that the suffering is delicious, even though it totally is, but it would certainly help the image. So I think it would get the boos that it desires, but I definitely think there would be those people that would be like, yes, yes, I can finally enjoy you, Roman, and hopefully they wouldn't ruin it for anybody else. And so, yeah, that's my thought on that.
I think that Roman turning heel would get cheered, but I think that a Roman heel run after the first like couple weeks of shock and like finally he's heel. I think that there is nobody in the WWE right now more capable of sustaining a negative reaction than Roman Reigns. Because if you let this guy be basically what he was in NXT, maybe even with the volume turned up a little more, and maybe combined with a little Rick Rude in there, he could be the most over heel that we've had since Muhammad Hassan.
I agree. I really couldn't have articulated that better.
Because the thing with Roman is he like I said, if you just put a little dash of Rick Rude in there, just have him acknowledge that he is a good-looking guy and that women want him and that men want to be him. That's all you need. Nuclear. It's over. End it. Because he not only does he have that, but then he also has the company behind him, and he can use that as fuel in his promos. He has this sort of this, he's been booked as a superhero for the last few years. He has that in his pocket. There's so much material that he has that he could cut promos with. It's not even fair at this point. And you combine that with the Rick Rude factor with the NXT thoroughbred gimmick where he knows that he's the shit and he knows that people need to bend to his will, because if they don't, then he is in Vince McMahon's pocket and he can have that person punished for whatever it was that they did or didn't do that he wanted them to not do or do. It's the complete package as a heel. It's everything you could possibly want as a heel, and that is precisely why John and I get so angry when Roman shows even a sliver of that heel side of him, when, even something as simple as a tweet about how he makes more money than Kevin Owens. Like, you're such a douchebag. Please be a heel.
Yeah, my sentiments exactly, but I'm not going to go any further than that. We can move on to our next question.
So, and by the way, I see Mr. Trayshawn in chat saying that Roman wouldn't be able to be this top heel because he would have to talk. But I'm guessing that means you haven't seen his NXT promos when he was a heel, because he can talk.
Because they were great.
He just can't cut face promos. Is what he's basically like Johnny Mundo. He can talk, but don't ask him to cut a face promo because he's awful when it comes to pandering.
Exactly. I completely agree. Go if you can and like find his early NXT stuff, particularly his clocks promo. It's Roman Reigns time. And he claims that he has. Well, I guess, opinions differ, but I do think Roman Reigns could talk given, proper material and everything. And don't let him do pandering again. Just kind of let him talk about himself. And yeah, I think he'd be fantastic.
Yeah. It's if he's talking about how he's seen Roman talk as Leaki, but this isn't Leaki, it's the thoroughbred.
Yeah, thoroughbred Roman Reigns. So good.
All right, so we have one final question from Ben Jr. Choose the best main event, tag team, mid-card, and women's champion from SmackDown Live, Raw, and NXT. So basically what we're doing is we're looking at SmackDown Live, Monday Night Raw, and NXT, and we're picking who we think the best main event champion is, the best tag team champion is, the best mid-card champion, and the best women's champion. John, do you want to go first, or should I?
I'll go first. Best women's champion, I'd say Asuka. tag team champions. I love Alpha, but seeing as how they just won the titles, DIY, I feel like had a better story to the titles anyway, so I'll say DIY. Mid-card champion, NXT doesn't have a mid-card champion, so I'm going to go with Miz because I love what he's been doing with the Intercontinental title. And as far as main champion, I got to go with AJ Styles with the WWE title. I'm still loving his work all this time later. So this is one where I won't actually, I think Styles just hasn't beat. So,
and that's you kind of clean sweeped because I completely agree with every single person you just picked, 100%. So up next we had 2 questions from the Smart Show. First one, what's your favorite Seth Rollins match in WWE?
Again, another one I've thought a lot about. And the funny thing is, because if we say, like, I'm guessing when he says Seth Rollins, he means Seth Rollins singles match. Because if it was the Shield matches, honestly, their TLC debut was fantastic. And they had a lot of, like, 6-man tags that were so good. But focusing on Seth Rollins as an individual, it's either Seth Rollins versus John Cena at SummerSlam for the U.S. the U.S. Championship and the WWE Championship. Even with the Jon Stewart finish, I thought Seth wrestled his ass off in that match. The one match he had with John Cena on SmackDown, I think to close out the year, that you and I were really a big fan of, and I was so behind Seth towards the end, but Cena pulled out the win. That was another great match. And there was a Raw match I wanted to mention. Hell, even his no-holds-barred match with Kevin Owens recently was really good. But I'd say the SummerSlam match is my absolute favorite right now. And hopefully I can change my answer come 2017.
Yeah, my currently to date, my favorite Seth Rollins match is actually his triple threat against Cena and Brock at Royal Rumble last year.
Oh, that was so good, dude. So good.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
man.
that's my favorite. That's my favorite Rollins match in WWE so far. So up next was our second question from the Smart Show. What was your favorite Raw TV match this year?
Raw TV match. See, because I'm trying to think about early 2016 and what happened early 2016. Was Cena U.S. champion at the start of the year?
Cena was injured at the start of the year, brother.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I'm probably thinking 2015 because I was going to say his title defenses against Cesaro. I thought they had amazing TV matches. But if I can't say that, honestly, I would say the no disqualification match between Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens for the Universal Championship because it was one of those feuds where I didn't care for the Clash of Champions match. And I honestly, while the Hell in a Cell match was good, I didn't think it was their best effort, but I feel like they really finally got it right on Raw. So I'll say their no disqualification match, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens for the Universal Championship. So.
Yeah. This is really difficult for me because I don't remember any Raw matches from this year. So I almost have to default to the women's Falls Count Anywhere match between Sasha and Charlotte, which I didn't want to do, but I feel like I don't have much of a choice because I just can't think of anything better.
Yeah, I mean, I totally feel you there, partner. I'm hoping, honestly, that next Monday to kind of, ring in the new year, like the first Raw 2017, that last man standing match between Strowman and Zayn will be an early candidate because I'm really excited for that match. I think those guys can make some magic together. I just hope WWE lets them. So.
Yeah. So the second part of this question is same question, but for SmackDown Live.
SmackDown Live, that is a bit tougher, I'd say, because I feel like SmackDown Live had a pretty decent year. Dean Ambrose and John Cena had a good match, and it was pretty cool that Dean Ambrose won. Dean and AJ Styles also had good TV matches, too. Man, what a year for AJ Styles. Even the triple threat we saw recently, I thought that was really good. But you know what? I'm going to say, fuck. Yeah, this is actually pretty difficult for SmackDown Live. I think I'm going to say Dean AJ, where if Dean didn't win, he wouldn't get a title opportunity, but it was his last chance to get a title opportunity, but he had to beat AJ because their matches just kept getting better and better. And I remember that being a SmackDown Live match. So I'll say Dean and AJ.
Didn't Miz and Ziggler have a TV match where they first started kind of hinting at the Miz using Daniel Bryan's moves? Are you there, John?
I'm here, partner. What were were you saying? I think we had like a really bad hiccup. What were you saying about Miz and Ziggler?
Yeah, didn't they have a TV match that was like the first instance of Miz using Daniel Bryan's moves?
Um, I believe. Yeah,
I'm sorry, what did you say? You said I believe what?
I believe they did. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So that would be my pick because I feel like I remember that being an amazing match.
All right. So there you go. Uh,
You cut out so bad, John.
next question, partner, because I said, yeah, that's great. You know, Ms. Ziggler from SmackDown when he started
Yeah,
using
okay.
Dan was it.
Right. All right. So then we had two questions from Alex Weber. The first question: who do you think is going to be Lucha Underground champion at the end of season 3?
Honestly, with Johnny Mundo as your amazing and incredible Lucha Underground champion, I really don't know if like anybody will take it off him at the end of the season. But if they do want to have a fresh face to close out the season to kind of rope in interest for season 4, I think Taya would be a great choice as a
Damn it! You
technical.
took my answer.
Well, you should have seen it coming. How long have I been saying it? Try harder, Mark.
I've been saying it longer than you have.
Well, who has the connection with Worldwide Underground? I made a wiki for that man's abs. I have seniority. Mil Muertes could be a 2-time champion. Oh, I know how much you love Mil Muertes. So I just really want to dig. So yeah, Mil could also work. So yeah, I'll say like either Taya or Mil. I think Mil actually will be one of those guys that's a repeat champion. He's just too good not to be for my money. So what about you, Ashton?
I'm going to say Puma Dark, brother, because I mean, it would be the perfect full circle story if Dark Puma, after winning the first ever Lucha Underground Championship by last beating Johnny Mundo, they opened the season together in their first ever main event. They closed the first season with Mundo kind of and Puma kind of bookending Ultima Lucha Part Dos or Ultima Lucha 1 Part 2. They have so much of a history together that Puma Dark story come full circle and him overcoming whatever Vampiro thinks it is that led to him losing his way to find his way back to the world championship at Ultima Lucha Tres Part 4. I think that would be the perfect kind of full circle story to close the season out on.
Hey, brother, looking at wrestling for what it is and getting outside of my markdom, I completely agree with you. That's a beautifully woven narrative right there. So good stuff.
I still think it's going to be Taya, but I had to pick something different given that you picked Taya.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. But see, now I forced you to be creative and you had a beautiful answer. So welcome.
Sure, thanks, I guess. Are there any particular holiday traditions that either one of us enjoys taking part in, and if so, which ones?
What about you, brother? Do you have any traditions that you like to take part in?
Yeah. I mean, there are some holiday traditions. It's more my family taking part in them and me just kind of tagging along for the ride. Because, the main holidays, the main Christian holidays that are celebrated in the U.S. I can't even say Christian because Thanksgiving isn't a Christian holiday, but like Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, the family always has a big dinner for those holidays. And so I'll go up, and even if I don't want to eat anything that they make, which actually just happened at Christmas, I didn't even eat Christmas dinner. I just like being up there and spending time with the family, parents, and my aunt and her two daughters, which are my cousins. And now one of my cousins has a daughter, so my second cousin. Just being able to spend time with family is really cool. So that's one, and then like 4th of July, we always do a cookout, and that's always cool. And then New Year's, I'm sure either tomorrow or Sunday, we're gonna do hot dogs with sauerkraut and pork, kind of your traditional New Year's cookout kind of thing. And then I think that's about it. Yeah, that would be it. So those are pretty much the only. Oh, and as far as other like traditions, yeah, we did put up a Christmas tree this year because I know my mom loves that, and I she's into it, so I know that if I kind of play along, that it'll put her in a good mood. And I, even though I don't necessarily have a belief in, what Christmas was sort of meant to be, as far as the religious context, I still kind of just buy into Christmas as a capitalist holiday and just, a consumerism holiday. And, I consume. So we make cookies and we put up the tree and we buy presents for each other and all that stuff. So it's cool. It's Christmas without the religion, and that's the kind of Christmas I can get behind.
Yeah, I completely agree there, brother. The funny thing is, living here, it's not that my family like doesn't do anything special. It's just we don't really make a big production out of holidays. Like my sister did decorate for Christmas, but that's really to me, I think less about her like absolutely loving the holiday is more that she's just an artist at heart and she loves decorating and she loves her projects. And I think that's if not speaking for her, but that's just how I view it, right? That it's just she sees it as another project. I know when I used to live in Jersey, one holiday tradition we would have is me and Christy would like give each other our gifts on Christmas Eve. So we would do kind of familial giving and we would give our grandmother her gifts on Christmas Eve. And then the main presents from Santa would be on Christmas. But yeah, we don't really do traditions, like with New Year's, that'll probably be just another day, no cider or anything like overly productive like that. And I like it like that. I like that it's low key. Really, the only tradition that we have as a household really has nothing to do with holidays. Every Tuesday, we order food out. We go in and we binge watch stuff on Netflix as a family, and we call it Family Day, literally. So that's really the big tradition we have, and I love it, and I'm good with just that. So, yeah.
Yeah, buddy. All right. So up next, we have a question from Roddy Whipwreck. Do you think Lucha Underground will ever have a character similar to the Crow?
Um, I don't think they will personally. I'm gonna say no to that. What about you, Ashton?
I agree. I don't think that. Why bother? Like, it's already been done in wrestling. To be able to do it better than Sting, so just leave it alone and do something new and creative.
Yep, express my sentiments perfectly. Let's move on.
Paul P.W. Gregory, who is still in chat miraculously, even though it is 3:45 a.m. in UK time, has 5 questions for us, and they are all really vague. Well, one of them isn't really vague, but the other 4 are either really vague or really heady. So here we go. First question: what was your best day? This is what I mean by vague, because I'm assuming he means best day ever, but at the same time, that's a really hard question to answer.
You want me to go first on this one, or do you want to
I don't care. I have an
go
answer
first?
in my head, so whether you want to go first or you want me to go first is whatever.
You could go first.
Okay, so I'm going to be straight up with you guys. I don't know what my best day ever is, but I'll tell you what the best day that I remember is, and that was a day. I don't even know what the date was, but it was a day in 2008, June of 2008. After I graduated from high school, we had our senior trip, and my senior trip constituted a trip to the beach for a few hours, and then we got to go to a Philadelphia Phillies baseball game. So my senior trip was freaking awesome. I got to spend the day with some friends, chilling out on the beach, walking the boardwalk, and then we went to the baseball game, and that to me, like, it's not even just like that the beach and the baseball game were the funnest things ever to do, so much as it felt like it was special because to me, because it was like, this is kind of the last organized activity that I'm ever going to have as a high schooler.
Yeah, I can feel you on that. Like you, I run into similar difficulties with best day. And again, this is another question that I was chewing on quite a bit. And by the way, Paul, respect for you staying up right now and us getting to your questions. I'm so glad you get to hear this live. I would say my best, like if I was being really specific, my best day was getting in the New York Times because I worked for that for years. And to realize it and to get a nice payday from it, I cried my eyes out seeing it. Like you just work so hard at something And then you see it realized. Like it's just such a sense of pride and accomplishment. But really, more generally, I would say the best day was when I really embraced philosophy as my passion, and I really like the day I fell in love with it because I was reading somebody's autobiography, and I just knew that something was missing in my life because people know what my life was like. I've kind of peeled back the curtain a little bit a few times now, and I wasn't in a good place at that time. School was kicking my ass. I know I wasn't the best, in my relationships because I know a little before that was like the whole 6-month drop off I had, and TWitWoW kind of went to the wayside. I wasn't a person that I liked. I wasn't a part of circumstances that I liked, and I missed how I used to be because I used to be like a very intellectually curious and inquisitive person. Like while other people were reading like Hardy Boy mysteries, I was reading like biographies on Einstein and Edison. By the way, fuck you, Edison, Tesla for life. And I missed that, and I wanted to go back to my roots, but science kind of bored me. I mean, I was scientifically literate, but I really didn't have a passion for it. So coming upon that, I think would be my best day because it was just so freaking life changing. Like even now, I've made friendships that I'll cherish forever. I credit meeting my current girlfriend for my love of philosophy, and I've had essays appear in 3 books and a New York Times publication, and I've got my first conference the summer of next year. So it just completely changed my life. So I'd say the best day of my life really was the beginning of the rest of it. And I'd say it was really having this as a passion. So that's going to be my more broad answer. But my more narrow answer would be my New York Times publication achievement of my life so far. So, yeah.
What about the day Mundo won the title when you got to interact with him on Twitter and you got to interact with Chuck E. T and everything?
Yeah, like you'd think, right? But like for me, and I was so happy for him, right? Like that was a great accomplishment for him. I really being a big fan of his, like I got to experience that, but nothing beats doing something yourself, or in other words, right. DIY. And like I had written those essays, I had experienced that rejection. I had gone through wanting to put my life back together with how shitty it was and how miserable I was. So because it's just so much more personal, like for Mundo, yes, he deserved it, and he deserved it a long ass time, and he is having a career year, and I love that man to death. But if we're talking on a personal level, definitely that, because my life changed, and I'd say for the better, and I'm still working on myself to this day, as we all are. But I'm sure as fuck happier with who I am today than who I used to be. And I credit philosophy for a lot, if not all of that. It's just had such a positive influence on my life. So definitely that.
All right. Up next, we have from PW Gregory, what was your worst day? This is so easy for me.
Okay, your worst day?
Let me look on a calendar to make sure that I have the exact date correct. Let's see here. I want to say it was either August 10th or August 17th of this year.
Oh, of this year. Okay.
Oh yeah. Because let me, you know what? I'm gonna just go back in our videos, our history on YouTube, to see if I can find the exact day that I can legitimately say is the worst day of my life. There's the August 22nd. Just going to go back a little bit further than that. And here we go. It's actually 4 pages back. And it is August. Let's see here. Where is it? Where is it? Seriously, it's further back than that? Maybe it's August 3rd. It might be August 3rd. That'd actually be it. Yeah, it's August 3rd. August 3rd, 2016 is the worst day of my life because that is the day that everything changed. Because on August 3rd, John and I got together at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to record and live reactions, English commentary for G1 Climax 2016 Day 11. And on August 3rd is the day that MP3 Skype Recorder ceased to function. So MP3 Skype Recorder took a dump, and we spent literally, I believe it was 4 or 5 hours trying to figure out how to record our English commentary for G1 Climax. And at the end of the day, nothing worked. So we were just straight up just kind of screwed. Luckily, this was not during a season of Lucha Underground because we would have missed Lucha Underground that day. But then after realizing it's hopeless, we have no options. TWitWoW might actually be dead at this point. I decide, I'm going to get out of the house. I'm going to go grab a bite to eat. So I start my car and I hold in the brake and I put my car into reverse to pull out of the driveway and I hear a little click. And next thing you know, I am driving, not even driving. My car is just loose, falling backwards into the neighbor's yard, and I'm desperately trying to direct myself so that I can hit a tree because that was the best case scenario at that point, because the worst case scenario was hitting something living, or going down a hill and picking up momentum and then dying. So yeah, I had to direct myself to hit a tree. So now my car is totaled. I had to basically crawl my way, and my mom was with me, so that's shitty too, because now I got into a car crash with my mom and kind of messed her up. So then I had to crawl back up to the house. I had to inform my grandparents, hey guys, I backed into a tree. My car's brakes gave out. And, I kind of had to hear it from them as if it was my fault that my brakes gave out. And then, we had to get AAA over here to tow my car out of the neighbor's yard. There was the scare of, oh God, please don't let the neighbors sue us for crashing into their tree. I also took out the one wall of their shed with my car on the way to the tree. Sue yet, hoping they won't. I'm highly doubtful because they're actually really nice people. But so then, yeah, I got down here and I got to tell you all about it, and then we recorded a commentary about it, and then we did an NXT review. So that was the worst day of my life by far.
Yeah, that because why I laughed, just the way you said, "Oh, it's useless," like just that directness of, "Oh, it's hopeless." I don't know, just struck a chord. But yeah, there is nothing funny about that car. I was so glad that you and your mom, because I mean, you hear car accident, you think the worst, and yeah, I mean, you got banged up, but I was just so grateful that it wasn't like fucking paralysis or anything, and I was just like so glad that you were, alive. Um. Worst day of my life. I mean, I apologize for the proceeding darkness, but you did ask worst day, and I've got to be honest with everybody. Worst day of my life. Really, you could take any day from my childhood up until I was 7 years old, but one day that sticks out because my parents were very negligible. My dad was in jail at the time, and my mom left us alone constantly. We really didn't know what food was or anything, and I'm like starving. I'm looking to get anything in my system, and I see this glass of iced tea, and I'm like, oh, wow, I love iced tea. Let me just have a glass of this, just get this sugar to keep me going. And I drink it, and it turns out the iced tea was spoiled. But of course, when you're starving, you don't really care what anything is. Unfortunately for me, my system obviously didn't agree with it, and I threw my guts up. And given the lack of poor care that I was already receiving, you can imagine that the attention to it wasn't exactly immediate. So I was dealing with this chronic vomiting to the point where I was actually lugging around my own bucket. Because I guess, well, we can't exactly take care of you, but I really don't like you messing up my house, So vomit in this bucket. And I felt like shit. Like if there was any point as a child that I wanted to die, it probably would have been then. Because I'm like, yeah, that definitely would be better than what I'm enduring. So that day of my childhood, and there are many, I could tell you guys fucking war stories, but I don't want to totally kill the mood. But that day is easily the worst day of my life because I lived through every second of it. And the worst part is, and again, not to get too gross or TMI, but like, I always knew it was coming because I don't know if any of you guys ever had this. I know when I'm going to throw up because of how I burp. Just something about certain burps that I'll be like, oh God, it's not agreeing or settling. So every time that would happen, I'd be like, oh God, it's happening again.
You know
And
what
I would
that
just
is,
be
John?
so, what is that?
There's actually an enzyme that your body produces when it doesn't agree with something that if you burp up a certain enzyme that you have like a strange like, oh shit, I'm about to puke taste in your mouth, spit that shit out, because if you swallow it, that's what makes you puke, because there's an enzyme that does that when you swallow it, it triggers your gag reflexes, and that's what makes you puke.
Well, the more you know. Well, believe me, I've puked enough for one lifetime. And the only reason, because I know Cliff mentioned the Benoit tragedy. I mean, yeah, that tore me up, but you're not a child living through that shit. Like, the vomiting was definitely far more traumatic. That's a day that's never going to leave me. As many days from my childhood, but that especially stands out. That was horrible. Day of my life.
Yeah. All right. So up next, third question from Paul. Do you think Vince McMahon is a good person?
Uh, no. Next question. No, but
Right?
yeah.
That seems like such an easy question. I mean, here's the thing. Like I said earlier in my unpopular opinions thing, I don't think there's such thing as a bad person. I think that there's such thing as a person who makes bad decisions because it's a learned behavior. But that still, I don't think makes them a bad person, because saying they're a bad person implies that they're doing it with malintent. And I don't think Vince makes his decisions with the intent to ruin lives so much as he makes his decisions because it's just something that he has learned over the years.
And see, I would agree with that because I mean, when you hear some people talk, like I mentioned Zach Gowen earlier, like he really does have a great relationship with Vince, and Vince and the WWE really like saved my life and they helped my life. Stone Cold, even though he's had like heated things with Vince, like they're on good terms. So I don't think necessarily like he's like this human version of Satan or whatever, anything like that. I just think the way he was brought up and the things are right, stubborn and obstinate, like he's not going to give way to anybody. So he's not malicious, but I definitely think he's very stubborn and to a degree ignorant, and that can be just as harmful in certain contexts. So, and yeah, he does really have some shitty attitudes as well, but at the end of the day, do I think he's a terrible person? Yes, but not in that whole way, just in a more, wow, you're just a product of a generation that just needs to die out sort of way.
Yep. Yeah. And then the question is, do you think Vince McMahon is a good person? And I can honestly say no to that because, like I said, I don't really think there's such thing as a good person or a bad person. I think it's just there are people who make good and bad decisions.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Fourth question from PW Gregory. What is your favorite intergender wrestling match?
Oh, so fucking easy for me. Johnny Mundo versus Sexy Star for the Lucha Underground Championship. You?
Mine would probably be Candice LeRae and Joey Ryan versus the Young Bucks in Guerrilla Warfare.
Oh, dude, Candice LeRae and Joey Ryan are amazing together. I love that pick. And yeah, that Guerrilla Warfare match was excellent. Also, if I had to say a match that really wasn't a Mundo-based, definitely Pentagon Dark versus the Black Lotus Triad. Especially,
yes. Yeah, that's a great pick. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't even think of that. That match didn't even cross my mind. But yeah, you're 100% right. That was brilliant.
Absolutely. So you said that was question 4. So do we have one more question from Paul, or where are we?
Yeah, we've got one more question from Paul, and this is where things get deep. You've been given the unique opportunity to start your own society. You have significant control over how said society is run. How would you run it?
You go first, I guess, because I have an answer, but you go first on this
2
one.
words. Venus Project. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up.
Well, let's see. Hold on. Words. I was just counting it off because I'm like, I want to impress people, but damn it, the delay kind of ruined it. But for me, yeah, fully automated luxury communism. Definitely.
That's basically what the Venus Project is.
We're both on the same wavelength, which I already knew going into this question. So yeah, I'd have a fully automated luxury like communist economy, or again, Venus Project. And I'd really have a society that on a political level, I mean, for things that humans were left to have to do, I would have it be a very participatory government. I would want to try a autocracy out, so it would have a high level of participation. That's when it's decided by lottery. Ancient Athenians used to do that. And I actually have a book called Is Democracy Possible by the Australian philosopher John Bernheim. It's a really good text. I'd use that as my template, and I know other political philosophers have written on it.
Terrible.
The way he articulated it, I thought it was amazing, and I actually think it's viable, but I'm not going to go into that whole thing here. I just want to keep
Like,
it brief. So
I mean, I know that this is probably like an over-the-top, exaggerated version of what it would actually be, but I just imagine, like, you say a autocracy, and I'm thinking like, oh, hey guys, how do we resolve the issue of I don't know, freaking starving children in the streets? And they're like, everyone's coming up with decent answers, and it's like, oh, just give them food, or oh, give them money to buy food, or oh, give them jobs so that they can earn money to buy food. But then there's that one guy who's just like, slaughter them all in their sleep, and that gets passed.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, that is an over exaggeration. But again, I don't want to get into all the nuance here because we have so many other questions, and that could be like a video in itself. But like what I've read on autocracy, I do think it's plausible because I mean, I'm like you, right? When I first heard like lottery-based government, I'm like, well, that just sounds insane. Like you're just inviting chaos. But there actually is a way to structure where it's coherent. And mainly like why I like it, it takes away centralized authority. Really, any political organization of society that takes away centralized authority and kind of imbues authority on a more communal level, small municipalities and communes and things like that that are kind of coordinated horizontally rather than vertically, I think is a healthier society politically in terms of the distribution of power. I just don't like centralized authority, to put it another way. And yeah, on the economic side, again, fully automated. And as far as the people, I want a society where people can do what they really love. And I know that's cheesy, but I think we live in a world today where you either do business or you do a STEM field. I don't care for either. And I know quite a few other people don't as well. People pursue what they wanted to pursue. Automated society would help achieve that. So that's my ideal society for sure.
Yeah, that's my thing too. Is the technology that's available to us today could end poverty, period. Poverty is a completely unnecessary existence in today's world because we are so technologically advanced that the access that we have to resources is unprecedented. And I don't just mean unprecedented as in like the literal definition, like, oh, never been achievable before, but I mean literally unprecedented as in like something that could end most of the world's problems if people that had access to it put any effort whatsoever into ending the problems. Um, and John, you mentioned politics. My version of politics would be very, very grayscale, in the sense that rather than giving someone a ballot and saying, "Do you pick Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump?" I would say, who out of every politician available do you most want to be president? Write that person's name at number one. Who out of everyone left would you most like to be president? Write that person at number two. Now finish the top 10 list and send it in. We'll tally up all the points and see who has the lowest score, meaning the person with the lowest number, because a one would be one and two is two and that kind of stuff. And that person's the new president of the United States.
Yeah, I could certainly see that being a viable mode. Certainly. I mean, that's the funny thing. I'm just glad that we're talking about this because I feel like politics as usual. Like I keep waiting for a paradigm shift. And now I'm not even talking like a radical one like what you and I in our own private conversations have talked about. Just something just a bit incrementally more like away from what we're currently doing. And it's just not happening. I don't even think this administration will cause that paradigm shift. And if it doesn't, I've just given up hope altogether, personally. And it really sucks because I do think we need to start talking about alternatives. And as far as your issue on, or your sentiments on, I should say, poverty, I completely agree with you with that as well. In fact, going back to the unpopular opinions question, if I had to swap out one, I'd swap out the Benoit Hall of Fame one with the idea that I am at least what I would call a utopian communist, that being that I know that capitalism isn't what's right for society, but I haven't done all the legwork in terms of understanding theory just yet. I'm getting there. But, you know, the idea, I mean, here's the thing, guys. Everybody wants to say, I don't even like the fetishistic attitude towards capitalism, almost like it's like a deity into itself. Like, oh, the market will fix everything. We have more homes and
I
homeless
actually
people.
just saw a freaking meme earlier today and it was a picture of an iPhone, and it said, "Capitalism made this iPhone possible." And it was like, no, labor made that iPhone possible. Capitalism is just defines who gets money for the iPhone.
Exactly. And to me, like you mentioning poverty, we have more homes than we do homeless people, like vacant homes, with the housing crisis and everything of 08.
Yeah.
And, it's ridiculous to me that people still like deify the market like it's all knowing and all, and those damn dirty socialists, even though what they're talking about isn't really socialism. And I just want to shoot myself in the fucking face. It's really, really irritating that people think like the market can solve everything when it really is. It's just the allocation and the structure of labor that makes those things possible. In fact, it's funny you mentioned the iPhone, because I forget who said this quote, but I find it so hilarious. They're like, you want to show people that socialism works, show them that socialism can make an iPhone. But the thing with capitalism and private industry is they privatize the profits and they socialize the losses. So, like that's how they're able to get all this shit done. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, here's the thing. If money was not the incentive in the economy, there would be no such thing as oh god, what is it called? Planned obsolescence.
yes. Oh my god, yes.
That wouldn't exist, because the whole reason for that existing is because it's a way for corporations and companies to continue extracting money from customers over time, rather than just, here is a perfectly fully functional product that'll last you the rest of your life, have fun with it. Because that's not a good business plan, and it truly isn't a good business plan at all, because that if you want to actually make money off of it, you have to jack the prices up so high that no one will be able to afford to buy it. So they just make everything less ideal than it should be for the sake of being able to say that they improved on it with the next edition iPhones.
Yeah, exactly. I hate planned obsolescence. I'm really glad you brought that up, because to me that just keeps people on the hook. Oh, your iPhone 5 is gone, but thankfully with the iPhone 6, what's the difference? Well, it's slimmer now, and it comes in 3 different colors. Isn't that amazing? And yet people will lap it up, and they will say, yes, that is amazing, in the most, affirming way they can, by actually paying for it. And I don't blame the consumer.
I mean, dude, look at the friggin' iPhone. Look at the friggin' iPhone 7. They've been advertising it like it's this big deal. Guys, the iPhone 7 has stereo speakers. And meanwhile, the HTC One that I bought 3 years ago has stereo speakers. So it's not new.
I think, because I had 2 pivotal moments when I really got disgusted with capitalism, right? The one was with the Apple factories in China. I forget the place in China where the factories were, and normally I'm able to recall it, but we've been answering so many goddamn questions. And the factory workers like jumped off the roof of the building, and it was like mass suicide on a mass scale, because the working conditions were terrible, absolutely terrible. So what do? They install nets. They don't actually improve the internal workings of the factory. No, we're just going to make sure they can't jump off the roof anymore by having nets. That was like the first time I'm like, no, I'm done with this shit. And the second time, and I shit you not, I'm curious actually where the development of this product is, where we talk about actually, supply and demand and all that shit. Because school shootings have been like a big phenomenon. Hell, just mass shootings in general have become really a phenomenon in this country. And somebody actually said like, oh, we'll just sell like these like blankets or coverings that are bulletproof on college campuses. And I'm like, that's nowhere near addressing the cycle and the sociological issues that give rise to this phenomenon. That's why I hate the market, because you're going to make this bulletproof thing, but how does that address the core issues that give rise to a phenomenon like mass shootings? And that's why, like, I feel like in an ideal society where labor is allocated to machines, you take away a lot of psychological stressors that contribute to a lot of mental disorders and physical disorders and just really dispositions in general. If you give people the autonomy to do what they want, wouldn't you know it, you get psychologically healthier people and happy, a lot better than the current retributive justice paradigm got right now. Just everything in this society to me is so fucked up. But yeah, that would be my ideal society for sure.
All right. So that was the final question from PW Gregory. We have questions left. First one from Charlene is thoughts on the whole teases about the Shield reunion, good or bad?
Uh, it's funny that she breaks it down to a good or bad binary, because I would have just said like inevitable. Like, we knew it was coming, and the thing is, like, it's weird because I feel like Dean started off as a really hot babyface, but then he doesn't get reactions anymore. And hell, this feud with The Miz could get people interested in him again, like big time. But he's kind of waned for me as a face. Seth, I can't believe that it was practically a fucking gimme. And he could be like running shit as a face, but I feel like it's kind of hot and cold with him. And Roman moving up to teasing of a Shield reunion when they're baby faces, knowing that all three guys, like, none of them really are an exemplar as a babyface. Sure as fuck not Roman. I'd be more excited about a Shield reunion if they were heels and they decided, hey, if I can't take down this babyface by myself, I'm going to enlist some help. And then they just all start running roughshod again because strength in numbers. So that's my feeling about that. What about you, Ash? I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I do kind of disagree with you in that I think that if the Shield were to reunite right now, it would make all three of their characters significantly more interesting, even as baby faces.
Right.
So that's my whole thing. And I agree with you that it feels inevitable. I'm surprised that the one little glimpse we got of it at Survivor Series was the only real extent that we got of the Shield reunion. I think we're going to get more of it. And really, I can't imagine any of the three guys turning heel anytime soon. It should be Roman, but it'll probably be Ambrose when it does happen. And yeah, I mean, when it does happen, the odds are going to decrease by quite a bit. So until then, it seems like, the longer we go without it, the more likely it feels like it's going to happen.
Right. I completely agree.
Up next, second question from Charlene. What are your opinions on Renee getting involved in this Ambrose Miz storyline?
Here's the thing. My kind of just average answer is, it is what it is. I mean, really, I kind of felt like they were going to do it for a while now. Not saying like, oh, guys, the storyline's coming, but I felt like, well, one day I'm sure they'll acknowledge this relationship the same way I figured one day they'll acknowledge Nikki Bella and John Cena more openly. And I like Renee, and right now I like what she's doing because I don't think she's too much at the forefront, even though I say that and she freaking slapped The Miz in the face and he's been antagonizing her, but it hasn't been overplayed to me. We'll see what happens next Tuesday on SmackDown Live when Dean Ambrose and Miz have their Intercontinental title match. We'll see how involved she gets, but Renee seems like a really cool person. I think she does a great job at what she does, with talking smack and being an interview and everything. So I'm willing to give her a chance. I just hope it really doesn't become one of those obnoxious storylines, even though, I mean, come on, look where we are. So, I mean, I like it for now, but we'll see where it goes. What about you, bro?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I will say is that this is pretty clearly a play on Total Divas, because there's this whole thing going on with um, Renee and Maurice being the new cast members of Total Divas, and they really want to kind of make that be a big deal. So I don't know if we're going to get to see Renee step into the ring, and if she does, I imagine it would probably be in the context of like an intergender match where she just like throws a few arm drags to Maurice and then tags out or something. But even then, that kind of feels like, knowing WWE, it does feel kind of inevitable. But I, at the same time, kind of want to just be in denial about it until I actually have to happen, or until I actually have to like watch it happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that they're using this to kind of progress the Ambrose Miz storyline is cool to me. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Total Divas stuff I could do without, but at least they're being consistent about it this time in that they're actually, acknowledging the Total Divas stuff in all of their storylines involving women and not, or really all of their storylines involving women in the cast of Total Divas and not being like super inconsistent about it like they used to be.
Right.
That's my whole thing is like, I don't want you to use Total Divas in your storylines, but if you have to, at least be consistent about it.
Right. I get what you're saying. I can appreciate that.
So, yeah, Renee being involved in it is weird, but it's also, there's a lot of potential there because she and Ambrose have great chemistry as an on-screen couple, which I'm sure is because they're a real life couple. And Miz and Maurice have been one of the best things going in WWE for a long time now. So if they're using, this kind of feels like a kitchen sink kind of feud where they're just throwing everything at us, including the kitchen sink.
Yeah, I completely agree. Definitely.
All right. Third question from Charlene. Could Ms. Ambrose be a top or one of the top feuds in 2017 if done right?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about a great heel. And what I love about this Miz heel character, even though I guess you could say his prior like heel work, it really was just him being an extension of himself. This really does have like an authenticity to it that I think kind of walks that line between being authentic and also, being exaggerated. Because, I doubt that he's this much of a douche in real life about his movie star prestige or whatever, but I just think it works so well. And Ambrose, I think he's really needed a feud like this. Like, I enjoyed the AJ feud immensely, but the thing about AJ is, like, yes, he's a heel, but he's so damn good at what he does. Like, even if you boo him, I think you only boo him half-heartedly because there's a part of you that acknowledges, fuck, AJ's good. It'll be really great to see Ambrose work with a true quality heel. And I will say, and honestly, this is the biggest compliment I could give to The Miz after one hell of a year he's had. In a year where I feel like either every heel is cool or every fan wants to be cool and cheer for a heel for a certain reason. I mean, hell, I certainly fit into that. I love Johnny Mundo. I love Kevin Owens. I feel like Miz truly is that real, genuine article of a heel, where even though I enjoy his work, I enjoy seeing him get beat too. So, yeah, it'll be great seeing Ambrose work with that kind of a heel foil. And I think these guys can create magic together if just done right. And honestly, SmackDown Live, I think, is a pretty good record. So I'm confident.
I completely agree. Yeah. So up next, fourth question from Charlene. What is your favorite portrayal of the Dean Ambrose character? Shield, post-Shield breakup, WWE Championship run, or post-Championship run?
I'd say Shield Dean Ambrose for me. If for no other reason, like one promo that sticks out in my mind was the first Money in the Bank ladder match he was in, and he puts his hand out to the camera and he said, "Do you see my hand? See how it's not shaking? Because I don't get nervous." He said that, just another night to me, just another big match, for the Shield. So I loved Shield Dean Ambrose because he had that swagger about him and that confidence because he had a brotherhood and a brotherhood of legitimate force. So definitely Shield Dean Ambrose is my favorite if we're going just by those categories alone. What about you?
I think I got to give mine to the WWE Championship run. I thought he was doing great work. His work with Ziggler, even, I feel like kind of did a lot for Ziggler's career in that it kind of brought him out of obscurity and brought him back to the forefront and made him a relevant title contender again. He even won the IC title again, even though he did lose it relatively quickly afterwards. So yeah, I think Ambrose was a really underrated champion this year.
You know what? I would agree with that. And honestly, I even fit into the audience that underrates him because I remember some of the promos he cut as WWE champion. And I would even say on TWitWoW, I was like, he had that real quality, like, this championship is my life. And I loved it. I loved every bit about it. And yeah, I think he really was a great world champion. So I can certainly see where you're coming from.
All right. Final question from Charlene. Of the following three guys, who has been booked the best character-wise and why? Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns.
I would say Dean Ambrose because
agree.
I feel like he's been the most consistent. Like the thing with Seth, and again, I love Seth and I really want to get behind Seth and I am behind him, but I can't lie. I feel like they really bungled this face turn when he had that interview with Michael Cole, and Michael Cole asked a very pointed question that I think a lot of fans would ask, and I at least credit WWE for acknowledging. I just wish they were better prepared for it. What makes you different from Kevin Owens? I thought Rollins' answer was terrible. It's like, and again, I even said this on a TWitWoW. I would have owned that there is no difference, but they cut me out. So now I really have to go and prove myself against the new Golden Boy. Be vulnerable, be honest about your sins. And I feel like they almost tried sweeping him under the rug. Ambrose, he owns what he is. The audience owns what he is. Everybody owns what he is, and he's able to walk that consistent path. And don't even get me started on fucking Roman Reigns. So yeah, Dean Ambrose is definitely the best booked.
I would say, When did the Shield break up, John? Was that in 14 or 15?
I feel like that was in 14, brother.
Okay. So I think that the ideal answer to that question would have been there is no difference between 2014 Seth Rollins and 2016 Kevin Owens, but 2016 Seth Rollins is awake and aware of the authority and what they are really about. And that means that I am a smarter animal than Kevin Owens because I am 3 steps ahead of him.
Yeah, I love that. See, if they would have done that, dude, I totally could have gotten on board with that. But again, I feel like they fumbled the ball really bad. So completely agree.
So my answer, I would agree with you. I think that of the 3, Ambrose has definitely been written the best because really, it's not like he's been written exceptionally well. It's more just that Rollins and Reigns have been 2 of the worst written characters in the company over the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's a perfect articulation of my feelings for sure.
So, all right, that's it for Charlene. We have 5 questions now from Shay Holm, and then we have 4 questions from Alex Foster, and that'll be the end of this commentary. So, first question from Shay Holm: Dark Puma versus Pentagon, or Dark Puma versus Mundo at Ultima Lucha Tres? And then he also added that whichever one happens in Ultima Lucha Tres, the other would be like the penultimate match to build up to Ultima Lucha Tres.
Oh, dude. I mean, Shay should already know my answer. I love Pentagon Dark, but Puma and Mundo was one of the first real defining feuds of Ultima Lucha. And if you want to talk about full circle endings, like you said earlier, of Puma regaining the championship, that rivalry needs to headline in Ultima Lucha to me because it headlined the first episode of Lucha Underground. So definitely Puma Dark versus Mundo. Absolutely.
I completely agree. Yeah. I would agree that Puma Mundo makes the most sense between those two. But at the same time, from a narrative perspective, Puma versus Pentagon, I almost feel like that needs to happen earlier because, like, Dark Puma is under Vampiro's control now, which means that Vampiro has ulterior motives and he's going to go after Pentagon using his new toy.
Exactly. That's a great point. Yeah.
So I'd say Vamp goes after Pentagon Dark with Dark Puma during the season, and then the last 2 months or so of the season can build to Puma Mundo at Ultima Lucha Tres.
I love it, dude. I completely agree.
All right, so second question from Shay: what's your favorite video game / series?
Favorite standalone video game would be the first Max Payne video game. Oh my god, that game is pure art. I enjoyed the sequel, and I haven't touched the third one since my Xbox 360 wiped all my data. Still bitter. But the first one is a masterpiece, even not taking like the trilogy into account, which it's a great series on the whole. But that one is just so good. Also, a big fan of the Hitman series. I know Chris got me like the new Hitman series episode 1 because they're doing it by episodes now, apparently. Unfortunately, my computer can't run it. I felt very glitchy, but when I get my computer upgraded, I'm going to play the shit out of that because I love the Hitman series. So yeah, Max Payne and Hitman will be my 2 answers. I cherish them both. What about you?
Yeah, well, my favorite video game right now is honestly probably modded Minecraft. I love me some progression-based gaming where you have to take a whole bunch of steps in order to achieve one big thing, which once you achieve it really only just unlocks a whole bunch of other steps to get you to the next step, and the whole thing is kind of a progression from scrub to god, and that's what modded Minecraft is to me. And I've been playing Feed the Beast Infinity Evolved Skyblock for the last few months, and the only reason it's been a few months is because I only play like once, maybe twice a week max.
Right.
Sometimes I don't even play it at all in a week. So really, I'd say I play like 3 to 5 times a month or so. But yeah, it's definitely the most enjoyable gaming experience that I've had over the last few years. Favorite game series of all time is really close between 3 different games. First of all, the obvious answer, Pokemon, just because every Pokemon game I've ever played up to but not including Black and White, I loved. I wasn't a big fan of Black and White, and I haven't played one since then. So that probably disqualifies it since they had those missteps. Another one would be the Golden Sun series, Golden Sun and Golden Sun: The Lost Age specifically, because I never got to play Dark Dawn, and I think there might even be another Golden Sun game that's out that I never played. But I freaking love the dynamic storytelling and everything about Golden Sun. I love that. Like, there are some games that are like, hey guys, let's make a game of Final Fantasy, but like the players have like, well, there's magic, and you get them to have weapons, and they have these like abilities that they can use outside of the world where they can manipulate the environment, and we can add puzzles to it and all that stuff. But Golden Sun took all that, and then they were like, you know what? We're also going to add sort of sidekick creatures that can manipulate by increasing or decreasing each character's stats, make them stronger, give them more skills. And by the way, when you use these creatures, they also give you the ability to summon gods. So Golden Sun is like the best RPG game I think I've ever played in my life. And then Golden Sun: The Lost Age is just so deep and long and in depth, and I freaking love both of those games. And then the third one is the Fire Emblem series, because I just love turn-based strategy games, and Fire Emblem, in my experience, is the best at turn-based strategy. I also loved Advance Wars, but I prefer the permadeath of Fire Emblem because it makes everything feel a lot more important. Like with Advance Wars, you just kind of grind out a bunch of infantry and mechs and tanks, and whoever dies dies. But as long as you capture the flag, it's whatever. You win. Congratulations. But with Fire Emblem, your characters are actual people. They're actual characters, and if they die, they're dead forever, and there's no resurrecting them. So you really need to make sure that you take care of your units in that game, and that adds a completely new layer of the strategy, and that's why I love it so much. So those are the big ones for me. John, did you mention what your favorite game series is, or is that just something that you
That
already
was
mentioned?
that was all kind of bound up with my favorite standalone game would be Max Payne, but I also was a big fan
Max
of the
Payne.
trilogy and the Hitman
Right.
series. And what I love about this Hitman series, which kind of bums me out that my computer
Right.
isn't capable of handling it now, is apparently like the online mode, they give you contracts daily. So you actually kind of act as a literal hitman, which is what I've always wanted the games to be. So yeah, I love both series so much. They're so freaking good.
Nice.
But next question.
Shay Holm, if you were wrestlers, what would you want your styles and finishers to be?
Oh, me, I would definitely want, like, in the spirit of a Fit Finley, a Benoit, Regal, Guerrero, like that technically sound catch wrestling with also like a brawling and striking element. That would definitely be my ideal form. And you asked what our finishers would be?
Mm-hmm.
Well, love me the crossface, obviously. And again, I mentioned the Regal Plex earlier. I would totally jack that shit, except I would probably do like a variation where it would be like a triple back suplex, but the third suplex would be the Regal Plex. So that would be my finisher.
Styles, I would have a very counter-heavy style where my character would kind of be like an intellectual, where they don't necessarily win because they're the biggest or the toughest or the strongest or the fastest or the most talented. They win because they put in the most work scouting their opponents, and this character would have every move of their opponents scouted to the point that it would be extremely difficult for the opponent to even get any kind of offense in unless they changed their style or used something that my character hadn't seen before. And so that would kind of be my style. I guess really it would be sort of an offshoot of technical wrestling, but it would be mostly counter based. And then my finisher would be a crucifix armbar that the character would use to counter pinfall attempts. Like, you go to hook my leg, and I squeeze my legs together to trap one arm, and then I roll you over into an armbar.
Well, that's fucking amazing. Good shit, man.
All right. So, fifth and final oh no, fourth question, I'm sorry, from Shay Holm. Have you read the TV tropes page for Lucha Underground, WWE, NXT, etc.? I'd suggest giving them a look.
No, I haven't, but I certainly will, Shay. Thank you. I'm curious now that he's mentioned that.
Yeah, I'm curious too. I think I've looked at the WWE tropes page, but I don't remember anything about it. So that goes to show you how much of an impact it had on me. All right. Fifth and final question from Shay Holm, and I love this. John, I hope you're ready because this is intended for Johnny Scumbag.
Okay.
We have two Armageddon type scenarios here in the world of wrestling. So let me pull because I didn't copy and paste the entire message into the notepad document I keep track of these with. Let me pull up Shay's message and let me tell you exactly what it was that the two options were. Here we go. Option one round is given the resources it needs to overthrow the WWE and become the new face of wrestling across the world. But Johnny Mundo is buried into oblivion, losing and jobbing for years until he finally quits in disgrace. His one victory of the championship is now a fleeting memory in the fans' eyes, buried beneath his failures.
Okay.
And scenario two, Mundo returns to the WWE with the Worldwide Underground and is given the platform to, kind of express himself. He's given wins, he's given creative freedom that he requires to become the WWE's next top guy. And we're talking Rock, Austin, Hogan levels of promotion. But Lucha Underground's writing team is replaced with Kevin Dunn.
Oh, Shay. See, I've
Oh, and by
I've
the way,
learned.
I wanna just also finish because he added a few other things. He said if you decide to choose neither or otherwise avoid the question, then Mundo will be buried and Dunn will take over Lucha Underground. Johnny, and let's see what kind of a scumbag you really are. This is my vengeance for you thwarting my cow prank. Now suffer. And yes, I do have an incredibly small dick. Thank you for noticing. That's all Shay Holmes' words.
I'm starting to wonder if Shay Holm and James are the same person, but that'll be my own investigation on my own time. Shay, what I've really begun to learn about you, since you're so adamant at playing at the grown-ups table of scumbaggery, is when you direct questions at me, I see you, son. Okay, I know these aren't really questions, they're provocations, because you're not looking for a genuine answer to this question. You're looking for two things. One, you're looking for my answer in the respect of how scummy is he so I can brag that I'm a bigger scumbag. And two, you want to see me squirm. Well, funny thing about that is you're not going to get it today. My answer is simple. My answer is Lucha Underground because, and here's why. I owe Mundo a huge debt. If it wasn't for him, I may not even be watching pro wrestling. And I know everybody says it. Maybe I would have anyway. But he was a big factor in me coming back. And I'm deeply indebted to him for that. But Lucha Underground treated him as he deserved to be treated. And for that, and because they are the next evolution of pro wrestling, which Johnny Mundo kept me in the first place, I'm willing to have him fail because I know if we were to talk to him, he'd say I'd be willing to fail because Lucha Underground's treated me so good. And I have Out of Your Mind fitness, and I have an acting career, and I have obliques. I wonder, Shay, do you even have a 4-pack? I doubt it. I have a 4-pack. You know why? Because I'm actually a scumbag. See, you try and be a scumbag, Shay. You try and play pretend like I see other people play pretend on TWitWoW, which everybody should check out as a group, and other places, but you're not the genuine article like me. To preserve Lucha Underground, I would tear Cliff's shoulder out of its socket and return it to 0%. I would destroy the WWE and create hundreds upon hundreds of lost jobs, families that would starve, go unemployed and in poverty. I would do it. And I do it with a smile because I'm the scumbag around here. So do me a favor. Try harder, suck less, and know your turf when it comes to being a scumbag. Son, I'm John. Johnny Scumbag, to be more precise. Recognize. Mic drop. End of question. get your revenge on that.
Moving on. We have 4 questions from Alex Foster. That was legendary, by the way. If you were to go to an NXT event, if you were to go to an NXT event together, obviously this is you and me going to an NXT event together. Let's call it NXT Takeover. I don't know, frickin' Boston. That's somewhere in between our states, so I don't know. NXT Takeover, middle of New York City, or I don't know, whatever. We're going to an NXT event, and the question is, name an anime character and a wrestler that you would want to bring along for the road trip.
Anime character and wrestler. I would want to take. Well, obviously, Johnny. We could talk about how amazing we are and how gorgeous we are, but then Light Yagami from Death Note, because then we could avoid every traffic jam ever by him writing their names in his notebook, and then we could just be able to get through traffic a lot easier. So
you do realize that if somebody dies while at the wheel of their car, the car is still there blocking traffic.
Yeah, but there's going to be so much calamity that we could probably cheat and just cut somewhere, illegally. But violation of traffic laws, I think, kind of pales in comparison to wide-scale murder, so we'd be able to go undetected. So yeah, I'm sticking by it. And really, if I had to get past the cars, I would go with Vegeta from the Saiyan Saga, because I know he would blast those cars into oblivion anyway without a second thought. So it's the wide-scale destruction, which goes back to my scumbag nature. Take note, Shay. And it would get rid of the traffic. So it's twofold. So, we got 2 options there.
Cool. Okay.
I feel like you're getting increasingly uncomfortable. What's happening here?
I'm baffled by your scumbaggery. It's amazing to me. Because you're thinking, oh, we're going on a road trip. I need to murder people.
Oh my God.
Meanwhile, I'm thinking, we're going on a road trip. How can I make this the most fun possible?
Right. Okay, so who would you bring? I'm curious about the anime part more so than the wrestling part. But
well, I'm actually more sure about my anime answer than anything. My wrestler answer, though, is a little bit more difficult. I think if I had to pick a wrestler that I feel like would be the best company on a road trip, I would almost have to say Becky Lynch, right? Because she just seems like she'd be fun to hang out with, and yeah, I feel like Becky Lynch would be the best road trip partner to have along the ride on the way to an NXT show. And we know she's a fan of NXT too, so that it would make sense that she would want to go. So Becky Lynch would be my wrestler, and I think my anime character would actually be Jinora from The Legend of Korra, because she's an airbender and she's got an awesome personality and she seems like she'd be fun to hang out with, and because she's an airbender, she can bring a freaking air bison that we can all ride on to the show, so we don't need a road trip because we've got a bison trip. Screw off.
That's actually a brilliant answer, and I'd expect nothing less from you. I'm proud of you. That's a great road trip. Oh, yeah. Man.
Me, you, Becky Lynch, and Jinora riding on the back of an air bison. That sounds like the best day ever.
I wouldn't even want to go to the NXT event after that. Why not just fly?
Right? Like, NXT isn't as good anymore lately. Why even bother? Let's just take a trip around the world, man.
Oh, absolutely, brother. That's excellent.
All right. So, up next, second question from Alex Foster. If one of you couldn't do the podcast for a week, what wrestler would you like to take your place? This is easy for me. Because if I couldn't do the podcast for a week and I got to pick a wrestler to take my place, easiest answer ever, Johnny Mundo, because I know that then he would get to do the podcast with John.
Yeah, you know what? Using that same logic, only Shinsuke's English was better, because I know you love Shinsuke's work. Let me think of somebody that is a good English speaker that you love. I know we're both really high on AJ. Who would you say? Because I know it's not Ambrose anymore, because you haven't had that same Ambrose marked since he debuted in the Shield. Who is one of your favorite performers? I know Shinsuke. Maybe you know what my answer would be? Ricochet, just as himself, because I know you love his Prince Puma work and you like him as Ricochet, and he seems laid back as fuck. I think you guys have a great time talking wrestling. If
I would be so freaking starstruck though,
I'd see my other answer though was kind of weird because, and you know, I've given you credit for this publicly. I have said I think you have a great creative mind. You're definitely very intelligent when it comes to wrestling. So I would actually want to put you with another or at least a mind I perceive as intelligent, or I like hearing talk about the business. So I would either like have you do a podcast with either Scott Levy, aka Raven, or Kevin Nash, one of those guys, because I'd love to see you play off of that.
Me and Big Kev talking about vanilla midgets and why they're killing the business. Yes.
Yeah, dude. I mean, honestly, like I know it may seem like a weird answer to some people, but I love Kevin Nash shoot interviews. Like I could listen to that guy talk for hours.
I freaking love Kevin Nash, dude. He is probably my favorite person to listen to talk about the business because it's like everything he says, it's like I feel like I should be offended, but he's right.
Right, yeah, it's like, and see, I'm so glad you're so accepting of that answer because, again, like, I mean it as a compliment. I've always admired your, you know, the first thing that really gravitated me to you was your blog that you were maintaining. And I'm like, wow, these opinions, like, they're so fresh. And so I had to form an average Joe equivalent of you have a similar mindset. So just seeing you two just talk to each other and bounce ideas and getting in debates like, no, Kevin, you're the mark, fuck your quad, you know, just sounds like an amazing time to me. And really, like, for me, I love that you
Kevin, you disagree with my opinion, and by disagree I mean tear, and by my opinion I mean your quad.
Dude, you and I both would be like, hey, Kevin, I know I have CP, but I can actually get up from a chair and not tear my quad. Fuck you. You know, so like, yeah, I just, like, Johnny Mundo's a great answer, but like, we couldn't even talk about anything. I would, and I wish I could get into Raven shoot interviews, but the problem with Raven is, because I tried watching him, and I know I have a tendency to do the same, so I apologize to everybody, but like, he goes on tangents that don't even come back full circle. Like, I at least feel like I can bring it back. I feel like he never does, and I'm just like, man, you're so smart. Why can't you speak more concisely? Why? Yeah, that's definitely Kevin Nash would be my pick for you for sure.
The only name that I've seen mentioned in chat that I would love to do a podcast with, and I'm sure you would as well, that we didn't mention is Scott Steiner, because come on, seriously.
Ha! Just oh god.
I'm going down this one-way road.
You'd ask him a question. So how did it feel being WCW champion? Yo, bro, answer your question. But did you see this bicep?
Look at that vein.
Look at that vein, Ashton. Look at that vein compared to all those fat asses in the back. Didn't want to work with any of those fat asses. Oh my God, Scott, I love you so much.
You know, I heard you got a crush on that Renee Young girl that's with Ambrose. But I don't know if you know this or not, but she's from Mexico South.
It's like, John, you know, I hear you talking about Johnny Mundo's obliques and that you work out. Well, I'm going to tell you, take your clothes off because I'm working on... Scott, we're on there. Take your clothes off. All right. Yeah, then I'd become incredibly self-conscious. But, you know, it's Scott Steiner, so you don't exactly say no. You just don't entirely say yes.
Hey, John. Remember when Pearl Harbor bombed the Germans?
Scott Steiner. If we weren't fucking trending by the end of that Scott Steiner interview, then there is something seriously wrong with the internet. Because the gems that would be produced, especially if I was really in a Johnny Scumbag kind of mood, and like you were in a, so like if the perfect storm just came together of you just feeling silly, like I know we've gotten towards the like tail end of certain NXT reviews, Scott Steiner just has to be Scott Steiner. I mean, that's his fucking life right there. And if I was feeling like extra scummy, oh my God, that perfect storm though. We wouldn't say anything productive the entire hour, and it would still be incredible. Oh, man. So, that wasn't our last question, though, was it?
I have two more left. Third question from Alex Foster. What's your favorite anime battle?
You know, it's funny because for as much as I love Code Geass, and that's my favorite, I'm not super into mechs, so I never really got into those battles. I'm going to have to fall back on, of course, DBZ, and that would be Super Vegeta versus Semi-Perfect Cell, because that was the only fight where Vegeta didn't get bitched out until he decided, wow, I'm the most powerful being in the universe. And then Cell's like, well, hey, if you really want to prove it, would you let me achieve my perfect form? Sure. And then everything went to shit. Like, come on, man, you fucked it up. Either that, actually, both my favorite battles come from the Cell Saga, because either that to Gohan versus Perfect Cell, because he handed Cell his ass. Oh my God, so many great moments in that. And the animation is just gorgeous in that. So the first battle, because I'm just a full-blown Vegeta mark, but from a more objective, like artistic standpoint, definitely Super Saiyan 2 Gohan versus Perfect Cell. That was just amazing. I loved it.
Nice. Yeah, and because I have very limited anime knowledge, I'm also going to have to cherry pick from what I've seen in Dragon Ball Z, which means that my answer is Super Buu versus Vegito.
Oh, dude, that's a great one. Dude, the trash talk in that is great.
Exactly.
Super Boo getting all flustered. And I love, too, because, like, how could I put this? Goku, to me, is kind of like Roman Reigns, except, like, I don't want him to go a villain, but he's really at his best when he can be more dickish, and I notice he's only really able to do that when he's fused with Vegeta, and it's always amazing. Always. Yep. I love those two when they're just at their most arrogant, because it's like, you know the fall's coming, but man, is the ride just so exhilarating while it's happening. So, totally love that answer, dude. Totally.
All right, awesome. And we have one question left, and I know for a fact that John is not going to be able to answer this question properly, so it's probably going to be me carrying it. But Alex Foster, we want to thank you for always being the last person to submit your questions and always allowing us to finish these on a light note. John, what was your favorite Power Rangers series?
Oh gosh, you're right. I won't be able to answer this. I guess the original, because I didn't know what taste was then. So I guess that wins by default. Also, nice subtle racism there, original Power Rangers, with the Black Ranger in the black suit and the Chinese woman in the yellow suit. I mean, we don't see you at all. But yeah, that was the only one I ever really watched. So I guess that one by default. So way to be the best and the worst, original Power Rangers. Way to go. What about you?
Well, there are actually quite a few candidates for me because I've seen quite a few seasons of Power Rangers. I know I saw the first few, and then I kind of jumped around a little bit. I saw Dino Thunder, I saw Wild Force, I saw Ninja Storm, but the one I've actually seen more than once from beginning to end. And I can honestly say that I've seen this one from beginning to end more than once, not only just in my life, but as an adult and enjoyed it. Power Rangers Jungle Fury. I loved that season. It was so good. I've tried getting into other seasons of Power Rangers and just couldn't do it, but Jungle Fury just hooks me in from the beginning, and it is a legitimately entertaining season of Power Rangers. So, Jungle Fury is the best, and I'll fight you about that.
Well, thankfully it won't be his, so you'll have to take
No,
up that
I wasn't
fight with
talking about
somebody
you,
else.
John. I was talking about Alex Foster because he asked the question, which means he obviously has an opinion on the matter, which means that his opinion could potentially be something other than Jungle Fury. But the correct answer is still Jungle Fury, and if he disagrees, he's wrong.
Whoa. Now, you Alex, if you fight, that might mess up everything. So I think we should just stay calm. I mean, life's already beaten him down because Becky Lynch divorced him and traded up. I just needed to dig my heels in there. So let's just all just have our opinions and just decompress, especially because we answered all these questions, bitches. Yes.
It ended up being 73, but that's still the new record by quite a lot.
Yes. You fucking kidding me? That's like, was 58. You're talking that's a record of 15 questions. So hell yes.
You know what though? I've got to ask because I saw Alex Foster said Time Force was his favorite, and Javaris Carter said Ninja Storm was his favorite. But those are both. I think those were like within the first like 6 or 7 or maybe even 8 seasons of Power Rangers. I know Time Force was early on. I think that was in like '99 or 2000. And Jungle Fury, I think, or that's the one that I like. Ninja Storm, I think, came out in like '03. But Jungle Fury, I think, didn't come out until like 07 or 08. So I'm curious, did either one of you guys even ever watch Jungle Fury? Because I mean, if your favorite season is Time Force and Ninja Storm, but that's only because you've never seen Jungle Fury, then I can completely forgive you. But if you've seen Jungle Fury and it's not your favorite, then you're wrong.
I love that you're still so adamant about it. Like, guys, here's the narrow opening I'll give you, to be absolved for your mistake. But if you did this willfully with the knowledge of Jungle Force, you are the markiest of marks. So,
It's Jungle Fury, John. Jungle Fury.
oh, Jungle Fury, excuse me. But yeah. Well, and look, Alex saying I watched it, I didn't hate it. Oh man, he's just itching.
I'm about to get triggered right now, John. I am about to get triggered.
Well, because we don't necessarily have a safe space, I guess we should just round out the commentary.
I guess we should. I'll continue this argument with Alex Foster. And you know what? I agree. RPM, I've heard a lot of good things about it. That's the first like 5 or 6 episodes. I've tried watching it because of all the good things I've heard. I heard, it's written by the same guy that wrote Jungle Fury, and I heard it was amazing. So I started watching a few episodes of it, and it was all right, but I just couldn't get into it like I could with Jungle Fury, man. And yeah, Javaris Carter, you're wrong, and Alex, you're wrong. So we'll, if you want to continue this little debate, we can take it to Twitter if you want, but you're still both wrong. And we will see you guys on Sunday for our year-end awards show. Of course, try to remember for Q&A that we are lowering the maximum limit of questions to 3 from 5 because we don't want to have to answer 73 questions in one Q&A ever again. And the number of people asking questions is not going to do anything but continue to increase, hopefully, which is a good thing because it means growth for the channel. But it's a bad thing because more questions, which means more time, which means poor UK people are going to have to stay up until 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning if they want to hear the whole thing live. So that said, Sunday we will be doing our year-end awards special, and it is going to be amazing. We have, you know what? I'm going to look just to get an exact number. We have 55 awards this year, up from 54 awards last year. We've changed things around just a little tiny bit, but that's okay. And we will see you all on Sunday. Hope you enjoyed this commentary. Hope you enjoyed this Q&A. Make sure to get your questions in for next month's Q&A, which will be on Friday,
January 27th.
January 27th. Thanks, John. You helped me. Friday, January 27th. And yeah, Javaris is exactly right. He is entitled to his wrong opinion, which is wrong. And so is Alex Foster, and that's perfectly fine, but they just need to know that they're wrong. So we will see you guys on Sunday for our year-end awards special. Stay tuned.